I trust that everybody. My name is Lorraine Botha. I'm the chairperson for this Standing Committee Local Government or on Local Government. I'm going to allow for all members to introduce themselves, and then I'm going to allow for the department to introduce themselves, and then I'm going to allow for all councillors on the platform to also introduce themselves. Thank you very much.
Good morning, Chairperson. Good morning, everyone. My name is Matlodi Maseko, and I'm the member of the Standing Committee.
Good morning, Deirdre Bartman. I'm an alternate. I'm standing in for Member Bosman.
Good morning, Chair and members and officials. Cameron Dugmore, member of this committee. Thank you.
Any officials from the Department of Local Government, please go ahead.
Chairperson, Yuan, yeah. I see they haven't joined us yet. I think we've got a problem getting them in. If we can proceed with Salga, and I'll see what we can do from this side.
Okay, you will attend to that then. All the Salga representatives, please, can you introduce yourselves? Anybody there?
Good morning. I'm Khalil Mulaji. I'm the Provincial Director of Operations. I will allow the Deputy Chair and the members to the legislature to introduce himself.
Good morning, colleagues. I'm Aidan Stillman, Deputy Chairperson of Salga, Western Cape. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Councillor Kalpen from the City of Cape Town, representing the legislator.
Morning. My name is Paul Swartz from Cape Agulhas.
Good morning. I'm Gert Kombrink from Drakensberg Municipality.
Johan.
Good morning, I'm Joe Hearn. I'm the Advisor Capacity Building and HR for Western Cape.
Armstrong.
Good morning, honorable members. My name is Armstrong Bella from Salga, Western Cape.
Member Dugmore, I note your hand.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair. Chair, would it be possible just to establish from the Salga delegation, you know, like what positions they actually have in Salga, Western Cape, and maybe just to brief us who is the executive, because apparently there's a new executive elected, because I noticed some of the members introduced themselves, you know, coming from Drakensberg or Gullis, but I just want to check, are they Salga PEC members, and who is actually the PEC of Salga? Thanks.
Okay, I note that the chairperson is not joining us, but the deputy chair has indicated as such, and that is the Councillor Aidan Stillman. Am I correct?
That is correct. That is correct. Yes.
Okay.
The three other members are representatives of the Salga representatives to the provincial legislature.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I take it that everybody has introduced themselves. I note that Advocate Leroux, you are on the platform. I also just needed to indicate that we have 2 procedural officers that are joining us. That is Jan and it is Fundu. Thank you very much for the logistics around creating this standing committee meeting. Advocate Leroux.
Hi, good morning, Chairperson. Good morning, committee. My name is Andre Leroux. I'm the Senior Legal Advisor at the Western Cape Provincial Parliament.
Thank you very much. Member Dagmo, your hand is still raised. I just need to table some.
No, I've lowered the hand. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much, Member Dagmo. Just in regard to tabling some apologies, as indicated, Member Bosman, he is on an international visit. Member Deirdre Bartman is standing in for him. And then also Minister Bradell is not joining us. He's on a cabinet bosporat. And then also the head of department is on the bosporat. Then in terms of rules of engagement, members, for this standing committee meeting, we are using MS Teams for this meeting. And it's also, this meeting is also flighted via a live feed on YouTube. And anybody may use that platform to join in on this meeting. And I'd like to welcome those who have joined us via the YouTube channel. Be welcome to this standing committee meeting. Then in regard to those that are in the meeting, those that are using the YouTube channel or those that are outside of this meeting, you are not going to be able to participate in this meeting. And also then to indicate to those that are in the meeting, please remain muted on your mic as well as on your video camera. Although when you have the platform to speak, you may use both your video camera as well as your mic. And then if your connection is a bit dodgy, then please, I would advise then to keep off your video camera. Then in regard to members or everybody on this platform, if you want to get the attention of the chairperson, please use the raise your hand function, or you may type in the chat box so that you can get the attention of the chairperson. Then I want to ask that after you have had the platform to speak, please then to mute your microphone. Members, with that said, I am sure that you have received the agenda for today's meeting. It's quite a lengthy meeting that we are going to have for the standing committee. And the first item on the agenda is in regard to the presentation by Mr. Andre Leroux, our Senior Legal Advisor. So members, without any further ado, Advocate Leroux, I'm giving over to you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Chairperson. Good morning again to everybody. Chairperson, I'm just confirming that the presentation is visible.
Indeed, it is flighted. Thank you.
Thank you. I've been asked to represent or do a presentation on a opinion dated 2016, so that's quite some time ago. Specifically on the issue of monitoring of local government by provincial parliament. And I think at the heart of the issue at the time in 2016, and I assume also now, was the whole question of oversight of local government by the legislature, whether there is such a thing, and if there is such a thing, what the extent of that would be. Maybe for background, computer seems to be freezing here a bit. There we go. Okay. To give a little bit of background, until the fourth term, so that includes during the fourth parliamentary term as well, this legislature had a committee on local government oversight. I think it's just important to emphasize the two different names of two different committees, because these were at the time intended to be very, very distinct committees. So the first one was called the Committee on Local Government Oversight. I think most people looking at that title would already maybe raise a few eyebrows, especially on the inclusion of the word oversight for a parliamentary committee. For the fifth parliamentary term, the previous term on legal advice, the legislature did not establish a committee on local government oversight. So at the time, there was still provision in the standing rules for such a committee, but the committee was in fact not established in the fifth term. At that point in time already, I think there were quite a few concerns about what the exact mandate of that committee would be, and whether that is an acceptable mandate for a parliamentary committee. During the fifth parliamentary term, in the standing rules, the Legislature's Standing Committee on Local Government, which is basically the committee we are in now, but obviously for in the fifth term, retained in its mandate a mandate that included local government oversight. So we again had the appearance of the word oversight in this committee's mandate, even though the Committee on Local Government Oversight was not established at the time. During review of the standing rules during the fifth term, it was decided to remove the Committee on Local Government Oversight from the standing rules. This is now recorded in the standing rules as they are to date, which is, I believe, the standing rules of March 2019. And then also it was decided to remove the mandate, the words local government oversight from the mandate of the Standing Committee on Local Government. Members,
And now your cited presentation is gone.
Yes, just give me a second here. My computer is a bit slow. Don't quite know what the issue is here. Okay. At present, in accordance with Standing Rule 71(1)(d), it provides for standing committees on provincial executive matters. I think already those words, provincial executive matters, will focus our conversation for purposes of this presentation. So in accordance with Rule 71(1)(d) of the standing rules as they are at present, this committee on Standing Committee on Local Government was established. So that's just to give some context. So the issue of monitoring and support and the issue of oversight of local government by this legislature or legislatures in general is not a new issue. It has come up in the past before. Just a brief explanation, why was oversight of local government removed from the rules? As I do this presentation, I am aware of the fact that most of the members are probably very well aware of all or most of these principles, but for purposes of being thorough, I will stick to the advice as it was given in 2016. So this legislature has oversight of the exercise of provincial executive authority in the province, which includes the implementation of legislation, and also has oversight of provincial organs of state in the province. The provincial executive authority and provincial organs of state in turn are accountable to the legislature. So there's always that two sides of the coin relationship between oversight and accountability. Where one has oversight, the other one always accounts. One can see that when one looks at section 114 sub 2 and section 133 of the Constitution. So oversight and accountability presupposes a relationship in which a person is answerable to another, or maybe to paraphrase that a bit, where that person is responsible to another for performance of that person's functions and powers. And there I also refer to an article, Building Representative Democracy. I think most of us appreciate that practically that means that voters confer authority on the legislature accounts to the voters, the legislature in turn appoints its premier and the executive council, or the executive council through the premier. And of course, that the executive council and premier accounts to the legislature, etc. So again, there's always that relationship between the person being overseen and accounting as well. So the legislature appointed a standing committee on local government to have oversight of the Department of Local Government. I think that's a very important thing to focus on. So what the legislature has oversight of is of the provincial executive and provincial organs of state. So specifically in this context, this committee has the mandate from the legislature to have oversight of the Department of Local Government, and then the Department of Local Government in turn accounts to this committee, the Standing Committee on Local Government. Neither the legislature nor the provincial government has oversight of local government. I think that's a very important point. A municipal council accounts to the voters that conferred authority on the municipal council. That having been said, it is a fact that the provincial government has a distinct relationship with local government. I think we all appreciate that the relationship between the different spheres and the different branches of government is not hermetically sealed. There's some overlap and some overflow, specifically as far as the Department of Local Government's mandate is concerned. There are constitutional requirements that the provincial government will perform certain functions. So the question becomes, what exactly is or are those functions if they are not of an oversight nature? So the legislatures have oversight of how the provincial executive performs in respect of the provincial executive's obligations or functions pertaining to local government. To elaborate on what the relationship between a provincial government and local government is, maybe the following observations. The provincial government must, by legislative and other measures, support and strengthen the capacity of municipalities to manage their own affairs, to exercise their powers and to perform their functions. In order to meet this obligation, the provincial government must monitor local government in the province. We see that in sections 154.1 and section 155.6 of the Constitution. So again, whether the provincial executive is meeting these obligations, monitoring, supporting and strengthening local government, is a matter in respect of which this legislature has oversight of the provincial executive. Further on that, I think it follows for the legislature to have oversight of the provincial executive in respect of the provincial executive's obligations to monitor, support and strengthen local government. The legislature may compel the disclosure of any information necessary to fulfill its oversight mandate. Provincial Parliament can compel the disclosure of information by any person, including any municipality. I think the important distinction here is that yes, the legislature, for purposes of fulfilling its constitutional oversight mandate, has the constitutional authority and the powers to compel the disclosure of information. I think it's a necessary corollary in order for the legislature to properly perform its constitutional functions, in this case, oversight of the provincial executive. The legislature has the power to compel the disclosure of information. So it's perfectly possible that the legislature may compel the disclosure of information by a municipality or municipal officials, or frankly by even a private company or anybody else, as long as that information is in the future. So
Chair,
even though the legislature...
Chair, sorry, we lost
you
that.
briefly. We lost you briefly.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you now. If you could just repeat.
Certainly, Chairperson. At what point did I get lost? How long have I been lost?
About a minute or so.
Okay. I think, Chairperson, what I will do is I'll speak to the first point on this slide. I think I've spoke on that for about a minute. I'm going to read it again at the risk of repeating. It says for the legislature to have oversight of the provincial executive in respect of the provincial executive's obligations to monitor, support and strengthen local government. The legislature may compel the disclosure of any information necessary to fulfill its oversight mandate. Provincial Parliament can compel the disclosure of information by any person, including any municipality. What I pointed out and what I think is important here is that I think it's very apparent that the legislature does not have oversight of provincial government. But the legislature does have the constitutional powers necessary to ensure that the legislature can perform its constitutional mandate. So inasmuch as the legislature may need information to have oversight of the Department of Local Government and the functions of the Department of Local Government, the legislature is constitutionally empowered to compel the disclosure of that information by whoever is in possession of that information. So even though it will never be that a municipality accounts to the legislature, it is perfectly possible that the legislature may compel the disclosure of information from a municipality or anybody else, a private company or anybody else, as long as that information is necessary for the legislature to perform its constitutional function. So it's a very broad power in Section 115 of the Constitution. It says the legislature can compel the disclosure of any...
Chairperson.
Pardon?
Member Dagmore.
Sorry, I'm not sure if the other members, Chair, but I lost the advocate again. Is it everyone or is it just me?
I think for this round now it's just you.
Okay, sorry about that. Okay, I'll try and sort it out.
Your connection might be a bit dodgy, groggy, not stable.
Can everybody hear me? Sure. So as long as there's that nexus between the legislature's oversight mandate and the legislature performing its legitimate constitutional functions, the authority to compel the disclosure of information is very wide. So it is perfectly possible for the legislature to compel a municipality. Normally that's not necessary. I don't think it's ever necessary. But it is possible to compel the disclosure of information from a municipality if the legislature needs that information to have oversight of the department. I say I don't think that is necessary or happens simply because the word compel implies the issuing of a summons or an act where you force a person to do something. And in the vast majority of cases, the legislature simply asks for information and then the information is made available. There are specific statutes that seek to ensure that the legislature has access to the information it needs to fulfill its oversight mandate. I think specifically here, I'm not going to read all that, but the Local Government Municipal Finance Management Act is essentially, it's a mechanism to ensure that the legislatures have access to certain types of information, statements, audit reports and things like that, which the legislatures can then rely on to monitor what is happening in the municipalities. So these statutory disclosures to provincial legislatures serve the same purpose in this context specifically, to ensure that the provincial legislatures have the information they need to have oversight, and I emphasize to have oversight of their respective provincial executives. So the question could be to the provincial executive or the Department of Local Government, have you performed your functions as the provincial department in the following respects? Have you monitored municipalities? How have you monitored municipalities, etc.? The oversight function fulfilled by the Standing Committee on Local Government appears like the oversight function of any other standing committee, by which I simply mean it relates to a distinct portfolio in the provincial government. So the Standing Committee on Local Government has oversight of those powers and functions that the Department of Local Government is responsible for, including the department's responsibility to monitor, support and strengthen local government. Specifically in the context of the Western Cape, we have the Western Cape Monitoring and Support of Municipalities Act, which gives some more context and I think content on processes and procedures I shall say, to streamline the relationship between the legislature and the municipalities in the province, and to make sure that the legislature gets access to the information it needs to monitor what is happening in the municipalities. In conclusion, a few points. I think quite simply the legislature does not have oversight of municipalities, and municipalities do not account to the legislature. I think that's obviously quite an important point. The legislature has oversight of the Department of Local Government's performance of its powers and functions in respect of the monitoring, support and strengthening of municipalities. It is so, to this end, the legislature can compel the disclosure of information by any person, including a municipality, if the legislature needs that information to have oversight of the department. And then specifically maybe the Municipal Finance Management Act also ensures that the certain types of information is made available to the legislature for the legislature to have oversight of the provincial executive. Maybe just as an observation, I think let me rather put it this way, the authority of the legislature is quite narrow when it comes to local government, and I think it can be summarized to say that it is the legislature is, or let me correct that, the provincial executive is entitled to monitor what is happening in the municipalities, and is obliged to monitor what is happening in the municipalities, and then also the legislature to provide support by the making of laws, for example, the Western Cape Monitoring and Support of Municipalities Act, to support municipalities in their functions. The only point where a province gets directly involved in the functions of a municipality would be with a Section 139 intervention, which is Section 139 of the Constitution. I think everybody's quite well aware of it, but Section 139(1) reads, when a municipality cannot or does not fulfill an executive obligation in terms of the Constitution or legislation, the relevant provincial executive may intervene. And then it's quite a cumbersome procedure that needs to be followed and criteria that needs to be met before the province can intervene in local government matters. The purpose of the monitoring power is simply to ensure that the provincial executive and indirectly the legislature can ascertain whether an intervention is or may become necessary. Otherwise, the authority, let me put it that way, of the provincial executive and the provincial legislature over local government is very much limited. Chairperson, I will leave my comments at that, and if there are any questions, I will do my best to answer them.
Thank you very much, Advocate Leroux, for that presentation. Members, I'm going to open up for you to pose questions of clarity or questions or make observations in regard to the presentation that we just had. And I am noting members Maseko and member Dagmo.
Thank you very much, Chairperson and Advocate Little. Thank you very much for really capacitating us more with the information. Just one question maybe or two. I want to find out, so you indicated that the executive responsibility is, or the obligation is for the monitoring, the support and strengthening of the municipality. I mean, we are specific on the local government. Now, we do have the budget that as a standing committees, we approve for that responsibilities in the municipalities. Now, if we do an oversight, we have to, and that is my interpretation of a layman, you will assist me. If we do an oversight, we have to see value for the money of that budget that we approved. Now, if I have to go to a B municipality or any, I'm saying B municipality, not mentioning the name of the municipality per se, what empowers me without just asking for information? Because if I have to interpret it, like I can say municipality, I need the information and they can put it in writing. They don't have to interact with me. So what empowers me to be able to interact with a municipality when coming to that allocated budget that the standing committee we approve from the Province to empower that B municipality? That's all that I'm trying to find out. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much, Member. Member Dugmore. Member Dugmore, are you there?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we don't hear you so clearly, but I will inform as we go along. But please continue.
Okay. No, thank you very much, Chair, and thank you to Advocate Daru for the presentation. I think the issue that we've been experiencing in the legislature, and I think it's a real privilege to have SALGA or representatives of SALGA with us here today. Just to explain briefly, I think the presentation is clear about the spheres of government, the obligations in terms of local government legislation on particular reports that need to be provided and so on. But one of the issues which has emerged is the fact that as MPLs, we have different constituencies, and sometimes members of the constituency would raise certain matters with us. And what then normally happens is that we direct a question, either for written or oral reply, to the MEC for local government. And what has happened is that, as far as I'm aware, there is one municipality in the province, which is the city of Cape Town, which has adopted a view that they are not obliged to provide information to the MEC, who then, say if there's a question directed to the city of Cape Town through the MEC, and the MEC then engages with the city and asks for a response to a particular question, to then have that reply tabled in the legislature. And the city of Cape Town, according to the MEC, has taken a view that they are not obliged to respond to these requests for information coming from members. So it is correct that the members are asking the question. It's not the standing committee. But our understanding is that no other municipality in the province has taken that position, and we're not aware of any other municipality in any other province that has taken the position that the city of Cape Town has taken. And then the MEC informed us that he's taken a legal opinion and so on, and we've also asked that legal opinion be discussed in the standing committee, because at the moment we are then not receiving replies to questions that we ask. So I would like to ask the advocate, what is his view in that regard in the context of seeking information from a local municipality, whether the position of City of Cape Town saying that they are not obliged and in fact they won't answer questions. Now that was in the previous term of office, when there was a different mayor, Honorable Plato. We now have a new mayor, and I'm not sure whether the view of the City of Cape Town is what it was under the previous mayor. But I would like to ask Advocate Leroux and also possibly the representatives here from SALGA, what is their view in regard to members of the legislature directing questions via the MEC about certain matters in a particular municipality. I would like to ask if there are views on that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. In regard to your latter part of the question to Salga, I'm going to let that stand over until Salga joins with the presentation. But Advocate Leroux, if you can take note of the question in regard to directly from you, from member Dugmore. Then I want to latch on to both members Dugmore and Maseko. Does this mean, Advocate Leroux, that if the standing committee wants information from a municipality, that the request or the questions must then be directed to the minister or the Department of Local Government in order to get the information from the municipalities? Or can the standing committees then go directly to the municipalities for information or request? Then in regard to what you are saying, in regard to your presentation, if you have to summarize in simple language to a layperson, what would that summary, what would the content of that summary be? Thank you very much. That's the questions. Member Dugmore, your hand is still raised. Is that legacy?
Yes, it's legacy. Sorry, Chair, I'll remove it.
Then
it's a legacy
Leroux.
hand.
Okay.
It's a legacy hand. Sorry.
Thank you. Thank you. Then Advocate Leroux, that's the round of questions. Thanks.
Thank you, Chairperson. I think I'm going to start with Member Dugmore's question because I think it sort of links the other two questions together, or the answers to the other two questions is quite related to that. I think the first point that needs to be made, I mean, our point of departure is that the legislature and the provincial executive does not have oversight of local government. I think everybody's happy with that, and that is uncontroversial. So that's the first point. And then the second point is what the provincial executive is entitled to do is to monitor what is happening in municipalities, and the provincial executive is also obliged to do that constitutionally. As I've mentioned already, the purpose of that monitoring is for the province to be able to assess whether an intervention may be warranted or not. Obviously, for a province to make a decision that, listen here, we need to intervene in municipality X, in accordance with Section 139 of the Constitution, in order for that decision to be made, the province needs information. It needs to base that decision on something. So in that sense, I mean, what Section 139, the scope of Section 139 of the Constitution is quite wide, and it says that when a municipality cannot or does not fulfill an executive obligation in terms of the Constitution or legislation. So I think the first thing is, if the province, by which I mean the provincial executive and or the provincial legislature, if the province, if there's information that relates to the performance of the executive obligations of a municipality, then the province is entitled to that information. So that is quite. That doesn't mean that the province has oversight of the municipality, but the province has a power and an obligation to monitor the performance of the executive obligations of the municipalities, so that the province can make an assessment as to whether an intervention is warranted. So I think that is the first thing. So it's quite a broad. As far as it can be said that the province doesn't have oversight, period, the scope of the entitlement, let's put it that way, of the province to monitor what is happening in the municipalities is quite wide. I think as I said, let me start with the question by Member Duckmore. I mean, yes, I can understand that members in their constituencies, the residents in constituencies won't necessarily be concerned with whether a decision is being made on a provincial or a national or local level. For them, government is government, and then they will raise issues maybe with a member of a legislature that should maybe relates more closely to the work of local government. I think the short answer to that question is that if the legislature requires information to have oversight of the MEC, of the Minister of Local Government's functions, then that information can be requested from the Minister. And then the Minister, probably relying on the Minister's powers in the Western Cape Monitoring and Support of Municipalities Act, will be entitled to ask for that information from the municipality. So if we have the connection, let me put it that way, between this legislature having oversight of an obligation by the provincial minister, then certainly, yes, this legislature would be entitled to ask that information from the provincial minister. If the provincial minister then needs to obtain that information from the municipality, the provincial minister would be entitled to ask for that in terms of the Monitoring and Support of Municipalities Act. If the information being requested from the provincial minister does not relate to that provincial minister's functions, then it puts the minister in a difficult position, because the minister, even if the minister may ask the municipality for that information, the minister himself or herself cannot compel the disclosure of that information, because the municipality is entitled to say the information that you are seeking does not relate to your functions as an MEC. So it's not necessary for purposes of monitoring of the municipality. So if the municipality can say that, then it would seem to me that the municipality would be entitled to refuse to make that information available to the MEC, and then of course the MEC won't be able to make the information available to the legislature. However, as I've said, I think the scope of what the province is entitled to monitor is very wide, and it relates to any information which is relevant to the province determining whether the municipality is performing its executive obligations adequately. Just give me a second. I think that also partly answers the chairperson's question. As I've said already, if the request for information relates to the minister's functions and the scope of the minister's entitlement to monitor local government, then that request for information can be directed to the minister. So in effect, the legislature is asking the minister to account to the legislature on a particular monitoring function of the minister over local government. So certainly, yes, the committee or the legislature would be able to ask the minister for that information. And of course, if the minister then needs to obtain that information from the local government, then the minister will request that information from the local government. So as long as there's that connection between the legislature's oversight of the provincial minister, the legislature would be entitled to ask for that information from the minister. I think on Member Maseko's question, I've already referred to or intimated to the authority of the committee and the legislature to compel the disclosure of information. So certainly, yes, if a committee is doing an oversight visit with the objective of having oversight of a function of the provincial minister, the committee would be entitled to ask for, if necessary, compel the disclosure of any information by that municipality that may inform on the functions of the provincial minister. So again, if that connection between the legislature having oversight of the provincial minister is present, then the legislature is entitled to ask a municipality for that information. Chair, if I haven't answered all the questions fully, maybe the members can just indicate that.
Thank you very much, Advocate Leroux. Members, do you have any follow-ups on the responses that you have had on the questions that you have posed? Member Bartman, I note you.
Thank you, Chair. A short comment, but it also relates to a question regarding how national government and provincial government interacts. In some of our other committees, for example, we have noticed that there are key issues in the Western Cape that are perhaps, for example, a national mandate, but because of the impact it's had on a Western Cape resident or how it has on the province as a whole and the functions of the province as a whole, we have been able to engage with some of our national counterparts in committees. And sometimes we have good relationships with them and sometimes we don't. For example, we have a good relationship with Eskom, but not that wonderful one with the Department of Energy. We have wonderful with public enterprises, but not so wonderful, for example, with social development. So it is a bit of also trying to build relationships. And I wanted to ask in that light that this particular, the impact, how one links the function of the executive to local government, does that also come into play then on a national level where, for example, we identified that the UIF payments is impacting on how we are assisting businesses in the Western Cape, and then we had public hearings on that regard. So maybe if we can just get some extra guidance on how do we build those relationships so we can make sure that one, we are able to share information so that we are able to do our jobs, but so that we also don't want municipalities to feel like we're encroaching upon their jurisdiction. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Member Bartman. Member Dugmore. Member Dugmore.
Oh God, thank you. Thank you, Chair. No, it's just, I just wanted to ask Advocate Leroux in sort of a follow-up to his response. Is he drawing a distinction between, say, for instance, this committee discusses a matter, say, concerning the Stellenbosch municipality, and then as a committee wants to check on whether the MEC is aware of a particular issue, say, around the lease of a piece of land or whatever it is there a distinction between that request from a committee of the legislature, because in his response he talked about the legislature, because the particular situation that I was referring to is when an individual member utilizing the provisions in our rules which allow for questions from a member. So in other words, if I ask a question as a member with a constituency in Mossel Bay, so it's not something that I've, for instance, raised in this committee, but I'm now raising it as a member and directing it to the MEC. When he talks about the legislature, does he include that situation? Does he include the asking of a question by an individual member of the legislature, or is he limiting that definition to a request from the committee itself? I'm just trying to, does he see a distinction between those two? Thanks.
Thank you, Member Dugmore. Advocate Leroux, that's the two questions then.
Chairperson, thank you for that. I must say I'm really enjoying the questions. I think it's really interesting questions. Firstly, on Member Baartman's question, absolutely. I think the between the three spheres of government, local government, provincial government, national government, the same principles apply. I think I've mentioned earlier, and I think everybody's aware of the fact that, you know, these are not hermetically sealed components. Decisions that national government makes on hundreds of issues, education, health, housing, name it, it's just the three of them, obviously has an impact on in the provinces and on residents in the province. And there's obviously overlap between the lawmaking powers of the local governments and the provinces and the national governments. So there's quite a lot of overlap, and I don't think it would be possible to govern a country if you know, if one tries to completely hermetically seal you know, all three spheres of government. That is just not possible. I think what I would always advise the committee engaging with a different sphere of government is to always I think where people get their hackles up in other spheres is where they don't appreciate sort of what the intention is between, in this case, the province asking for certain information. I think it's always important to make it clear to a national department or a national public entity or a state enterprise, etc., what the purpose of a request is. For example, Eskom, we don't have oversight of you, or the let's say National Department of Education. We do not have oversight of you. This is not about oversight. We as a provincial legislature is looking at an issue in our province that concerns education or energy, etc. It has an impact on our province. It is lawfully and legitimately in our mandate. Notably, let's say it's also in Schedule 4 of the Constitution. And we need information from the other spheres of government for us to, as a province and a provincial legislature, to deal with this provincial issue, or this issue that is. So I think I certainly I agree with the member. There's no issue with the province engaging with the other spheres and getting information from the other spheres that it needs to for purposes of its own provincial mandate, be it education or health, etc. I just think it is important to that the other spheres of government understand what the intention behind a particular engagement is. Then on Member Dugmore's question, I do think one should differentiate between an individual member requesting information from the provincial minister of local government relating to a municipality. I think, I mean, if I'm looking at section 115 of the Constitution, so it provides a provincial legislature or any of its committees may, and then it imposes quite a lot of powers on the provincial legislature or any of its committees, which is essentially the authority to compel the disclosure of information, which may also include the authority to summons a person to appear before the legislature or any committee. So that those are powers that are with the legislature and with the committee. So if the legislature or a committee of the legislature needs information from a municipality so that the legislature can have oversight of the provincial minister, then absolutely the authority of the legislature or the committee to request that information, and if necessary, compel the disclosure of the information is absolutely there. So as long as this committee or the legislature can say, we need the following information for us to determine whether the provincial minister, and I'm paraphrasing now, just using plain English, to see whether the provincial minister is doing his or her job or not. We need the following information. The city of Cape Town or Bergrivier or whoever has that information, and we then the committee can request or compel the disclosure of that. When it comes to an individual member, I don't think we can use the legislature and the authority of the legislature or the committee to obtain information that the legislature or the committee needs. I don't think one can, it's not a prior application that that a member can make to access information in a municipality, if it's not related to the oversight work of the committee or the legislature. So I don't think that. I would definitely draw a distinction between an individual member asking information through the offices of the MEC, because of course the individual member doesn't have oversight of the functions of the MEC. So I think that would be a different situation. Members Dagmar and Bartman, if I haven't responded fully, just tell me. Thank you.
Thank you, Advocate Leroux, and I think that you have responded fully. Member Dagmar?
No, thank you, Chair. No, I do think that's a full response, but I would just like, and maybe that's not a discussion, for us to proceed, because you would recall, Chair, that we did ask the MEC or the HOD in the last meeting to provide us with the legal opinion that
Yes,
they.
sure.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm saying,
You recall that we did ask for the legal opinion that the MEC had obtained when Cape Town Municipality last year, indicated that they are under no obligation to answer those questions coming from members via himself. Now, all I want to request is that we do discuss this issue, because, I suppose we could have a long debate about the lawfulness or otherwise. And I hear the distinction that's being drawn by the advocate. So at one level, I think there needs to be legal clarity, but I think we must also look at the issue of what conventions have developed, because as Member Bartman is saying, you broadly are trying to build a cooperative government where there's, cooperation between the different spheres, a free flow of information. And if the convention has existed, up to now, let's leave aside the argument whether it's lawful or not. When one begins to challenge a convention which has developed around members asking questions, etc. And I do take the point that councillors at a local level, are entitled to ask specific questions to their particular mayors and members of the executive and so on, through written or oral questions at a municipal level. So all I'm saying, Chair, if I could request that we find time in the near future to discuss this issue in detail, both from a legal point of view, as well as the issue of convention, because I'm just very worried that if such a tendency develops, you're going to have, for instance, other municipalities saying the same thing. Then you're going to have other provinces saying the same thing, which I think would in a way close down space. And I think we're all trying to rebuild and strengthen local government. And I think the issue of transparency and, for instance, the role of impacts, etc., is critical. And maybe what we also need to do, Chair, is then invite, and this will be my last point, invite the new mayor of Cape Town and just ask him whether the position as articulated by the previous administration is one that he shares. Thank you.
Chairperson? Lorraine?
Chair, we seem to have lost you.
Yeah, it seems we have lost the chair. I'll just take over for now and recognize Member Bartman.
No, Chair. Sorry, don't you need to be elected to chair the meeting?
No, while the member connects, we can listen to each other.
I'm willing to support that we continue.
I will nominate Member Maseko if Honorable Bartman seconds her.
Okay.
I was going to nominate, but I will second Member Dugmore's.
Okay. Thank you very much, honorable members. Honorable Member Bartman, you can continue.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, in a previous life, I also worked as a political assistant at the National Parliament, and perhaps what might be able to assist us also is if we ask the National Parliament for their guide to procedures, which essentially explains how their rules get implemented. And when we send questions to the head of the questions office, for example, there were many, many times where our questions were not allowed even to get onto the question paper, because the questions office of National Parliament, including the NA as well as the NCOP, are very, very strict with making sure that a question is one within the mandate of the department or the ministry that you're asking it to, two, that it's within the respective sphere of the respective parliament that you're asking it in, and three, that your question is formatted and written in a correct way. For example, you can't ask, why did you buy a disastrous table? For example, you can't use the word disastrous. You can only ask, why did you buy this table? What were the reasons, criteria, etc. You're not allowed to use emotional wording in your questions. It has to be formatted in a very specific way. So perhaps if the National Parliament can forward us those guide of procedures and ways on how do they filter their stuff, perhaps that might assist the committee as well as perhaps even the Rules Committee in how does one move forward in making sure that what ends up on a questions paper, what ends up in terms of what is being asked, that we are being reasonable in asking information that impacts decisions that the Western Cape government and the Western Cape Provincial Parliament requires in order to make decisions. That's just a suggestion.
Thank you very much. I think members, we do agree that we have to sit and do the resolutions to make sure that we get an ease of doing our oversight when coming to whether being the national parliament or the local government. So that is one thing that we have to see. But I was hoping that Member Botha, as we continue, will be able to connect so that we can have the way forward. But another thing that maybe it's okay. Member Botha, are you back? Okay, thank you very much. So it's my turn, over to you, but let me continue. Okay. Another thing is Member Dugmore raised very important issues that we will have to maybe as members only see to say how are we going to go about and the communication, because some of the questions from other standing committees, we get the response from the city. So it's not like a blanket thing that is happening that we don't get the information as we ask the questions. That is why it's one thing that we have to regroup and sit and say, how are we going to go about whether being national or any other municipality, whether the metro or the B municipalities. And then that it will empower us in the way forward of how do we ask the questions, how do we communicate with those municipalities, and that will be adding value to us to capacitate us. So that will wait for the resolutions. I bring that forth if the other members can agree to that. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Member Maseko, for holding the fort. I don't know, I have been cut out and I'm not too sure why, but I am back. So thank you very much for that. And then in regard to taking the way forward, yes, we are going to have to discuss in our slot after the department and SALGA has left us before we adjourn with the standing committee meeting. And yes, we have to have a broader discussion on the presentation by the advocate today, because as local government, we need to also bring Public Works and Transport Standing Committee, as well as Finance, as well as Human Settlements, because we are all fishing in the same dam or from the same dam. So we need to have better synergy in regard to the discussion that we have had. Members, I thank you for the questions and the probing into the presentation of the advocate with us today. And then Advocate Leroux, I thank you sincerely for presenting to us and for also responding to all the questions and the probing that we have had with you. I'm not too sure whether you are staying in the standing committee meeting for SALGA and for the department, or are you leaving the standing committee now? But whichever way, you are welcome in doing either or.
Thank you, Chairperson. It was the intention to not stay through the whole meeting, if that is in order.
That is in order, Advocate. So I will then say goodbye to you now. Thank you very much for joining the Standing Committee meeting. Members, in regard to recommendations for this segment, we shall do that in our admin slot of the Standing Committee meeting. Advocate Leroux, go well.
Thank you, Chair.
Then I am moving on with the agenda, and we are now with SALGA with their presentation to the Standing Committee. I just wanted to ask at this point in time, any officials of the Department of Local Government that has joined the meeting in the meantime, if you can just introduce yourselves. Ms. Barnard.
Honourable Chairperson and honourable members, good morning. My name is Ida Barnard. I am a representative senior manager of the Department of Local Government, and with me this morning I have 4 senior managers that is joining us from this side. Honourable Chairperson, I just want to confirm we also prepared a presentation if there is time, and such a willingness from the members, we are also prepared to present that, Chair. But good morning from our side to all the honourable members as well.
Thank you very much, Ms. Barnard. Yes, we will give you an opportunity to present. The 4 other colleagues that are with you, if they can just introduce themselves for the record.
I will just ask them to quickly do that, Honourable Chairperson. I'll just get up.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson. My name is Kamal McCann, Director Municipal Governance within the Department of Local Government.
Thank you.
Good morning, Honourable Chair and members. Sandra Greiling from the Department of Local Government, Municipal Support and Capacity Building.
Thank you.
Good morning, Honourable Chairperson and members. I'm Nabil Rylands, Director Municipal Performance Monitoring. Thank you.
Thank you.
Morning, Honourable Chair and members. Gary Birch, Director for Specialised Support. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much. In going forward with the agenda, I will now be with SALGA and then Deputy Chair Stoneman. And is it Mr. Hearn then that is responsible for the presentation?
That's correct,
Chairperson.
That's correct, Chairperson. Good morning, Honourable Chairperson, Honourable Committee members. Let me start by making an apology for our Provincial Chairperson, Councillor Donovan Joubert, who could not attend this meeting due to prior engagement. My name is Alderman Aidan Stillman from Drakensberg Municipality, and I'm the Deputy Chairperson of SALGA Western Cape. Joining me on the platform today as part of SALGA delegation are the 3 SALGA representatives to the Provincial Parliament elected at the recent Provincial Conference held in January 2022 to represent the organisation in this Parliament and its committees. We have Councillor Paul Swart from Cape Agulhas Municipality. Then we have Councillor Gert Combring from Drakensberg Municipality. Councillor Carl Punt from Cape Town, the City of Cape Town. Also on the platform is the Western Cape Provincial Director of Operations, Mr. Khalil Mulaji. And the other SALGA officials are as follows. advisor for HR and capacity building, who will do the presentation later, Mr. Joseph Hearn, Mr. Armstrong Mapela, Mr. Nkosanati September, and Mr. Lohiso Jamela. On behalf of SALGA, I would like to take this opportunity to thank the Standing Committee on Local Government for inviting us and to engage in such a crucial committee. We also take the opportunity to introduce the SALGA representatives to the committee. SALGA does receive invites from the Provincial Parliament Standing Committee meetings and provincial public hearings when matters affecting local government are considered. Further, the rules of the Provincial Parliament make provision for SALGA's participation in engagement affecting local government. SALGA has a good relationship and participation in the Standing Committee meetings, and we would like to keep and strengthen that relationship. Hence, today we are responding to the invite to brief the committee on SALGA's induction program for new councillors that have commenced after the local government elections. Mr. Joseph Hearn will take us through the presentation. Thank you, and over to Joe.
Thank you, Councillor Stoneman, and Honourable Chairperson and Honourable members of the Standing Committee. Let me just share my presentation and then I'll commence. Thanks. Can everybody see it clearly?
We can continue.
Thank you very much, Honourable Chairperson. So as Councillor Stoneman said, I'm going to present on the Integrated Council Induction Program, which comprises of 3 components, which are an initial generic ICP, it is followed by a portfolio-based induction, and lastly, the accredited Integrated Council Induction Program. The ICP aligns the learners into the institutional culture of municipalities, supports the learner to fulfill their role more effectively, enables the learner to have a better understanding of their new role in relation to the important mandate of municipalities, and gives practical guidance on important policies and legislation systems and the processes relevant to the execution of their tasks. The 5-day generic program consists of the following modules. There's a program overview. The municipal council as an ethical leader, the municipal council as a skilled leader, policy and legislation, municipal governance, municipal role players and stakeholders, municipal procedures and protocol, municipal planning and strategy, municipal finance, and then lastly, municipal performance and accountability. SALGA Western Cape rolled out the 2021 generic ICP training program over 4 weeks, which commenced on the 29th of November and ended on the 11th of February at 15 venues across the Western Cape. The sessions were well attended across the province, with 617 councillors attending, which is 73% of the 844 councillors in the Western Cape. Focus was on new and re-elected councillors who attended, and the councillors evaluated the ICP as follows. We had 450 councillors responding via our evaluation forms, which they scored us 95% strongly agreed, or agreed that the program was well structured, 95% strongly agreed, or agreed that they benefited from the session, 97% strongly agreed or agreed that the facilitators were knowledgeable and experienced, 93% strongly agreed or agreed that the program met the expectations as a councillor, and 92% strongly agreed or agreed that they now understand their roles and responsibilities. And so currently we are busy with the portfolio-based inductions, and one of them, the municipal finance and impact, we combined the two. We've completed that, and the induction is a product of a collaboration between SALGA, Department of Local Government, Provincial Treasury and SARS, and in certain sessions, National Treasury and DCOG participated. The models that were covered are internal structures and functions, impact establishment and functions as an oversight committee of council, impact versus disciplinary board and impact operations, UIF expenditure reduction strategy, what is an annual report, performance oversight over the annual report and developing an oversight report. We shared the impact brochure, SARS presentation, they did their presentation, and then the impact monitoring tool. And the training was rolled out per district, with the last session taking place on the 8th and the 9th of April. 128 councillors attended on the first day and 107 on the second day. The City of Cape Town, however, had an internal arrangement and inducted their municipal finance and impact portfolio members. The second one is our local economic development portfolio. The purpose of the local economic development portfolio-based council induction is to ensure that the economic development portfolio councils are capacitated to understand the economic development leadership and oversight roles, relevant legislation and policy, economic development context, investment attraction and retention, ease of doing business, importance of the informal economy, and the key national and provincial priorities. So far, we've trained the West Coast and the Cape Winelands, and this took place on the 11th of April. We are still the dates for the City of Cape Town, Garden Route, Overberg, and Central Coast districts are in the process of being finalized. The third one is social development. The rollout of the program is scheduled to commence in the first quarter of 2022-23. The training is scheduled to take place over 5 consecutive days per province, and each day will end with a high-level panel discussion. The program will cover the following: community services, safety and sport, integrated planning, development and local economic development, human settlements and town planning, and special programs, unit and social development, and lastly, community safety. The fourth portfolio is electricity and energy and water and sanitation. One 3-day session province will take place. The dates for the training are as follows: in the Western Cape, electricity and energy on the 18th and 19th of June, and water and sanitation on the 17th of June. The training will cover the following from energy and electricity and energy value chain, policy and legislative framework, institutional arrangements at national, provincial and local level, overview of the status quo within the sector, including challenges and key issues, and the service authority functions of the municipalities. From a water and sanitation perspective, we will cover the water cycle, policy, regulation, and the role of municipalities and councillors. Municipal sustainability and built environment and planning have been combined, and the training will cover the following: climate change, environmental management, waste management, disaster management, human settlements, transport, and lastly, built environment and planning. We will have 2 sessions, 2 5-day sessions in the province, days to be determined, and so the 2 sessions we're looking at having one Southern Cape and then one on the side. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you very much for that presentation, Mr. Hearn. Members, I am opening up for questions to the SALGA representation. Member Maseko.
Thank you very much, Chair. Chair, the quick one, I just want to find out from SALGA, the prioritizing the sessions or the trainings that they do arrange immediately after the elections. How do you go about? Do you have a chance maybe of sitting with the department to check which courses or which training are you going to prioritize as you roll out towards the end of the year and moving forward to see where the capacity is more needed than just doing the rollout to make sure that you attend to each and every portfolio that is within the municipalities. Thank you, Chair. That's all from me.
Thank you, Member Maseko. I'm just going to ask the SALGA representatives I'm going to take a round, if you can just jot down the questions asked so that you can respond for the round. I would want to know in regard to your training, is your training accredited? And you know, the accreditation, does it add up to a diploma or enrolling for a diploma or enrolling for further further education certificate? And then I want to know in regard to social support or psychosocial support to councillors. Does SALGA support councillors in that regard, and how do you then support councillors in that regard? And then also, how do you ensure or monitor that can I now say the lessons learned or the attendance of the different trainings that you have, the portfolio-based trainings that you have indicated, how do you ensure, how do you monitor that that specific councillor who attended for that specific municipality take that information gained, takes that information back to his or her municipality? Member Dugmore, I note you.
Yeah.
Member Dugmore?
Chairperson, thanks. Can you hear me?
Can hear you, yes.
Yeah. No, thank you very much to the SALGA Western Cape Deputy Chair, and then also for the presentation from the officials. I think, Chair, just starting off with what you were saying, in a way, and I'm not sure how councillors would feel about that, but in a way, SALGA is almost, for me, like a guardian, you know, of all of the councillors, because they are there, you know, to guide and to help and support. And I think that's an absolutely critical role. I mean, just speaking for ourselves, you know, we're not here to discuss party politics, but many of our new councillors, you know, come from the wards, and for many, it is their first time. So I think it can be quite overwhelming. And I think all of the training that we've heard about is important. But I think linked to what you were saying, Chair, my question relates to, I don't know whether you could put it under the category of psychosocial counseling, but if you look at it, these counsellors are there unless anything bad happens. They are there, you know, from 2021 through to 2026. So in that period, I think the growth and development of councillors is critical, but also sort of at a personal level. So in other words, the issue of their own, you know, financial management, you know, besides obviously the code of conduct issues and them avoiding, you know, being charged with the code of conduct and so on. You know, people have got 5 years to manage their finances. They need to understand how the municipal pensions work, and almost like, you know, be given support with financial planning, like where will you be in 2016? Because we all know that as public reps, there's no guarantee for anyone that you'll be coming back, or maybe some people don't even want to come back, etc. So I just wondered if there was, SALGA did provide that service of almost like financial and personal planning for councillors. That's the one thing. And then I'm not sure if it's appropriate to raise it here, but I just wondered whether SALGA National or SALGA Western Cape has got a position on the issue of who should hold the MPAC portfolio. I think once again, I don't think there's anything, as far as I know, in legislation which requires that the opposition to, you know, whichever party or coalition of parties is governing a municipality should take the impact chair. We know there's the precedent in the National Assembly, also in the legislature here, where, and in other legislatures where the opposition generally holds the position of scoper chair. But there are some situations in our province, you know, where the governing party or the governing coalition also holds the impact chair. And for me, that is a serious problem, especially if we're trying to, you know, turn local government around, open up issues of transparency and real oversight, which is the responsibility, amongst others, of impact. So I just wondered whether SALGA has a position on that and whether they support the convention that a member of the opposition party, so in other words, not a smaller party that's part of a governing coalition, but that an opposition party holds the position of impact chair. And then finally, whether SALGA in their training for councillors, specifically in regard to ward councillors, there does seem to be, and obviously a municipality itself is, you know, it is a legislative body and it has, you know, its rules and so on. But it seems to me that when it comes to ward councillors, some municipalities provide, you know, office accommodation, and some municipalities don't. And then some municipalities provide something called either a ward assistant or a ward administrator. And I was actually in Stellenbosch yesterday, where our councillors raised a very serious issue in that the whole process of appointing ward assistants appears to have been managed in such a way that, say, for instance, one of the councillors won a ward in Stellenbosch, and they won that ward from, in this case, a councillor whose party has now ended up governing Stellenbosch, in this case, the DA, and that the person appointed in the ANC councillor's ward is in fact the daughter of the DA councillor who contested that ward. So you have an almost untenable situation where the ward councillor who has an administrator, but that administrator, you know, is specifically, you know, from another party, even though names were submitted and who qualified. So I just wanted to know if there any consistency in regard to support for ward councillors that SALGA encourages, and do they have a particular view on what is happening in the Stellenbosch municipality in regard to the appointment of ward administrators? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Member Bartman.
Thank you, Chair. On this point, I'm also a constituency here in the Karoo, so these type of matters are quite close to my heart. In Laingsburg, for example, the ward councillor of Ward 3, the town area, was essentially kicked out of her office 2 days before the election, and she hasn't gotten a ward office again after the election. So essentially, she works out of her house, from the boot of her car, wherever she, you know, she can essentially, you know, do stuff like that. And she's been fighting to get an office again, but they just refusing to give her an office. And similar in the Beaufort and Central Karoo, for example, the impact chair is not, for example, the official opposition. And the Nelspoort council in that very rural farming area, I went to go do oversight over some of those buildings there. The Nelspoort councillor doesn't have office either, and I was at a public meeting there with the community of Nelspoort, and they were also like, we want an office for the councillor because we feel like we have nowhere to go give our complaints. The councillor has to also run around working out of the boot of their car. And similar in the Beaufort area, the town area where there are councillors, people are really struggling when there are ward councillors and they don't have offices, they don't have access to be able to assist their residents, whereas in other municipalities, those municipalities are able to go above and beyond in making sure that ward councillors have the resources in supporting and representing the people who elected them. Things like being able to use postage to send a letter to the resident in your community about the issues that affect them. You know, having that office, having that printer, having that Wi-Fi in your office, you know, being able to have a personal assistant or a secretary to take the complaints and matters when you are not there. So So in terms of that capacitation, it's really critical for me. And then the second question I have for SALGA is, I wanted to find out their courses and the things that the training and development that they do for the capacitation of councillors, are they accredited? Because one concern I do have for councillors is, and this also relates to public representatives on all other levels as well, is that sometimes you are not necessarily considered employable within the private sector. And if you lose after 5 years, you don't want to just have a councillor go out into the world and not having learned those financial skills management, the ability to transfer skills into a different type of job. So sometimes councillors even are worse off than they were after they were a councillor and was able to earn this particular salary. So I just want to find out what are they doing in terms of that particular aspect. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I just want to ask in regard to what members Dalkmo and Bartman has raised, I want to pose a question differently and ask, in regard to the SALGA prescript, what is the tools of trade prescribed for a ward councillor and a PR councillor, and does it differ whether you are a ward councillor or a PR councillor? And then I want to know, in regard to SALGA, how has SALGA encouraged communities within the Western Cape to participate in the census 2022? So what have you done to encourage that? We have all seen the call by the Premier of the province, and I want to know what has SALGA done to encourage the uptake for our communities to be counted in the census 2022. Thank you very much. That is the round of questions for now. Deputy Chair.
Thank you, Chairperson. I will give the opportunity to Mr. Khalil Mulaji and Mr. Hearn to respond on the questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson. Thank you. There are a number of questions that's asked that's not related to the request for us to make a presentation on capacity building and training, but it's questions that we note. And it's something we'll go through today, but we might have to leave over until for another engagement so that we could do an assessment of some of the information that's been asked. But I'll ask Joe Hearn just to respond to some of the questions.
Mr. Mulaji, can I ask that the questions that you are now saying that you are not able to respond to today, I take note of that, but I want to ask that those same questions we are going to then send to you for a written response. Would that be in order?
That is fine. That is perfect.
Okay.
What I will ask is for Joe Hearn just to respond to some of the questions that's linked to the induction, the training and the accreditation and those questions. So Joe, if you could respond to that.
Most definitely, Khalil. Okay, so I've noted. Do you need me to put up my? Okay, let me just do that for those who don't know me. Okay, so the first question was, how do we prioritize? With regards to the prioritizing of what we cover, at what stage during the capacitation of a councillor. So what we've noted in the past is that 70% of councillors that come are new councillors, and so it is a giant task to be a councillor. And what we need to do and what we do is that we educate councillors in what we call the generic induction. The induction is the first thing, and so it, as we listed there, it teaches the councillor what is expected of them, what is the mandate of the council, and also together with that, each municipality also inducts their councillors into what is the rules of procedure, etc., etc. We do cover it. It's covered in detail by the municipalities. So what we've also done is every time before we run an induction, sort of like in the 3rd or 4th year, we send out to our municipalities and also to our councillors that have been through our courses. Look, we've covered this in the last time. What would you like to see? What would you like to cover? We then incorporate that. We get together with COCTA. It's COCTA ourselves. We've also asked Department of Local Government for their comments. We ask the facilitators that we used in the past for their comments. And then we get together and we sit over months and we then refine the new product for the new term of councillors. So the prioritizing of content is not just a decision made by SALGA. We go through a lengthy process and we then issue the new learning documentation. With regard to accredited, no, the generic ICIP is not accredited. What we do is that we are working towards an accreditation of the ICIP, but we haven't reached there yet. So councillors who attend the generic ICIP get a the information is not accredited. We follow up with portfolio-based induction. In portfolio-based induction, what we do there is we consult with the departments covered by those portfolios extensively and also with our national office. And we then put together, again, information that allows a portfolio councillor to, A, do his oversight role, and B, be leadership in the municipalities, because that's where we see the focus should be in the first year, first 18 months. What is my job? What am I supposed to do to ensure that I do my job? And what must I do so that I don't get into trouble, basically? We then, after the portfolio induction, sort of near the end of the year or the beginning of next year, we then offer an accredited ICIP. The accredited ICIP is 2 focuses. One is for somebody with art matric, and the second course is for those with matric. The accreditation is for a course that you could, we don't pay for it, if the municipality or if the, sorry, not the municipality, if the individual councillor wants to accredit themselves, they can then accredit it. The reason for that is funding. It's very expensive. And also there is quite a lot of training and seminars that we want councillors to attend so that they can do the transition from activist to councillor. Okay, that's the accredited stuff. How do you ensure with monitoring and ensuring that the knowledge that we impart to councillors is utilized in their municipality? It is a function of the speaker to ensure that whatever information is imparted to a councillor is shared with other councillors. What we also do is remember that it's not just we not only interact with councillors, we also interact with officials, and our individual portfolios. We then also have training for the officials in the municipality. And it is a combination of continuous monitoring, continuous evaluation, requests from councillors that have been trained that say, look, I'm not too sure of this, can you do a refresher for us? And so we continuously train them over the 5-year period. The other questions, who should be, that's impact questions. I think Armstrong, I don't know if Khalil, if Armstrong can answer that, or we're going to leave that for the written. Again, also with the tools of trade and office space for councillors. That again, it is the priority of the municipality to ensure that that happens. And then over time, we also have other accredited courses that we will be offering councillors. There's an accredited course on performance management, which we have specifically. There are 3 legs to that. There is a political stream, there is a management stream, and then there's also those that actually have to carry out the ensuring that performance management is taken up by the municipality. I think that is all the ones that I can answer at this stage. Khalil?
Yeah, thanks, Joe. Yeah, just from the impact chairperson, we encourage that the opposition hold the chairperson of that positions. We are aware of very few municipalities where that is not happening, but we do encourage the opposition party to hold the chairperson of that. Just in terms of the coordination of the training, especially the induction training, that is being done through a steering committee that's been set up at national level, comprising of a number of departments that includes Auditor General of South Africa, National Treasury, COCTA, SALGA, the LGCTA, and at the provincial level we coordinate with Provincial Treasury, Department of Local Government, Department of DETP, as well as the AGSA. So, and then when we do roll out the sector training, we engage the sector department. So water and sanitation will be with the Department of Water and Sanitation. Environmental management will be with Department of Environmental Management, etc. So we do have those partnerships when we roll out the portfolio training. That's happening as we are talking now for the next few months. The census, we haven't really gotten involved in the census or creating awareness in the census, so we haven't done much around that. I think that is the responses we have. If we have not been able to respond to all of the questions, please furnish us with any written questions that we have not. But can I just ask Armstrong Mpela and then refer you back to our deputy chairperson before we close? Armstrong? Anything from your side?
Thank you, Chairperson. I think I can only respond to one question regarding the tools of trade. The tools of trade of councillors are determined by the upper limits notice. So there is no distinction there between a PR or a ward councillor. The office space allocation is made mainly for your full-time councillors and your executive mayors and chairpersons of Section 79 committees. So there's nothing really that we can do outside of that piece of legislation. So municipalities, obviously, depending on their capacity, will make office space available for all their councillors, those who can. Those who cannot, they will not be able to do so. So, Chair, I think we can expand on some of these responses when we get the written questions, and then we can elaborate on some of the questions. Thanks, and responses. Thank you.
Councillor Stoneman.
Chairperson, I would like to thank you for the opportunity to be part of this meeting this morning.
Councillor Stoneman, can I ask not to thank us yet? I noted a hand of Member Bartman.
Oh, okay.
So in terms of your time allocation, we're not done.
Okay.
Okay, Member Bartman, I noted you.
Apologies, I wanted to ask a follow-up, but then I realized the questions aren't done yet, so I'll wait until the next round. Thank you, Chair.
You can continue now.
Chair, my follow-up question is, I wanted to find out because the official indicated that only full-time councillors get those type of perks like a office. But Chair, if I think we all know in this meeting that there isn't really a thing of part-time councillors, even if you are a part-time councillor in name. I have never, even if you have other jobs, I've never actually met someone who didn't have to represent their community 24/7, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. I don't know what really that definition then is of full-time councillor, because if someone phones you with a pipe burst right now, you need to be there. If someone phones you regarding something that is broken in the road, or electricity is off or whatever, you have to go now. I don't know this thing of part-time councillor, because even those in name that are part-time councillors, which I do know some people, but in practice, they aren't part-time councillors, they are full-time councillors, because you can't just switch off at 5 o'clock and say, my job is done at the end of the day. So I just want to get some clarity as to why that distinction is there and whether that cannot change, because in practice it doesn't make any sense, even if you did have another job, even if it is written in such a way in law. In practical, like, all councillors are actually full-time councillors.
Thank you very much, Member Bartman. Member Masiko, I note you.
Thank you very much. I think I'm going to ledge into the question of Member Bartman, but I'm going to ask it this way. I mean, the governance throughout the years, there are changes or innovative ways that has to be implemented or has to be created in reacting to the community's expectations. Now, I just want to find out from SALGA, do they have a system that is empowering them to react to the demand of the communities as they interact with the other councillors on the ground, talking about what are the needs, what are the demands from the communities in the local government? For example, for tools of trade, like Member Bartman say that one of the important tools of trade will be to have an office where the communities can have access. They know that if we go to this space, we can have an access of a councillor. And the response is that only full-time. And like she mentioned that all councillors in principle, they're full-time, because communities, they don't have those terms of your full-time, not if you are a councillor, you are a councillor. Now that means SALGA also have to be innovative enough to react to those demands. Do you have the system of empowering you to make the changes as they are directed by the needs by the communities? That's what I want to find out. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Member Masiko. I just want to ask the chair now for SALGA in the meeting, are you able as SALGA to answer a question in regard to cooperations between the missionary stations and the municipalities? Are you able to answer a question on that now, or do I pose that in writing? That's my one. And then two, in regard to the payout of the honorarium of councillors that did not return to council, are you able to answer a question on that here now, before I pose those questions?
Yeah, Chairperson, I think the champion regarding those questions you are asking is Mr. Mulaji. So I think the best will be to pose the question in writing, and then you can get a full answer on that.
Okay, I will do that on the honorarium as well.
That's correct, Chairperson.
Okay, all right, I will do that. Thank you. Then that's the round of questions, then, Chair.
Mr. Hearn or Mr. Mulaji?
Thank you. Now, I think I'll ask Armstrong to respond to those questions about, I mean, the legislation is quite clear about full-time and part-time councillors, but maybe Armstrong can respond to the question.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. The questions posed by Honorable Maseko and Honorable Bartman are the questions that SALGA has been seized with in our engagement with the Commission for the Remuneration of Office Bearers. We raised those issues that for a councillor, you do not have a full-time or a part-time councillor. They are full-time. Their work requires them to be within their communities 24/7. When we do submit our comments for the upper limits notice, we constantly raise those issues. We, even now with the next round, will be engaging on those issues, but somehow they seem not to get into the upper limits notice. But we are not going to stop raising those issues. Those are real issues that affect our councillors and our communities. So, Chair, I don't think I can say more than what I've just said. Those are the issues that we are dealing with on a regular basis when we engage even within our working groups with the councillors. They raise those issues. So it's something that will be taking up again in our next round of the engagements with the Commission, the National Treasury, and COCTA towards the development of the next upper limits notice and the whole review of the councillor remuneration regime. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much. That then takes care of the responses to those questions. Members, if there are no more questions, I will then give over to the Deputy Chair for some closing remarks. Chairperson?
Yeah, thank you very much, Chairperson. I would like to thank once again for this engagement today. And I hope that in the future that we will have much more of these kind of engagements. So thank you very much and have a fruitful meeting further. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for availing yourselves to join us in this standing committee meeting. And thank you for the presentation and for responding to the interrogation of the presentation, as well as the questions that we have posed to you. I then want to ask Mr. Hearn to please remove your presentation. Thank you, sir. And then I will give over to Ms. Barnard to then start with her presentation. Thanks.
Thank you, Chairperson. I just want to connect with, do I need to just flight the presentation, Chairperson?
Asseblief, ma'am.
Dankie, Chairperson, I do.
Chair, are we going to have maybe a 2 minutes break while connection happens?
I want to say it like this: if you need to take a little break, then do. We are pressed for time because the Agriculture Standing Committee starts at 1. So we are a bit stressed for time. So I'm not giving an official break. But if you need to get up from where you are and just go do something or get a coffee, please do that. Ms. Barnard, you can see the presentation if you are ready, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Chairperson. Thank you for that. And once again, good morning to the committee members. So some of the questions we were diligently noting as we will, some of the matters that was raised by the members, the honourable members, will be addressed in our presentation as well. So, Honourable Chairperson, when we prepared the presentation, it actually helped us to reflect on the journey that we have come thus far in terms of councillor training in the department, and we really reflected going back a little bit in terms of where we started. And I will immediately then go on to my next slide, which indicates that even after the 2016 local government elections, our department was supported by the Hans Seidel Foundation, that's been a long-time partner of the provincial government of the Western Cape, and we rolled out a councillor training program at the time for newly elected councillors after the 2016 local government elections that consisted out of 9 modules, and the modules are listed there. Also interesting to note that our implementation agent at the time was the NMMU University. Then to connect with some of the questions that were asked, Honourable Chairperson, this was a fully accredited training program, and at the end of that training program, you would have 7 NQ. It is at the NQF level 7 if you completed all of these training modules. But what's also interesting to notice at the time, a councillor had a choice, honourable members. If you attend these modules, whether you want to complete the assignments or do you sit through the training sessions and it becomes an information session. And that is at the time how we handled it. And a number of our councillors actually went through this training program. Additionally, we call it Part B, but we also started at the time what we call theme-specific informal training sessions. Now, the department, our own Department of Local Government, has established internal capacity with our own staff to be able to provide informal training sessions in a number of focal areas. Now, these are areas that is listed there that looks like role and responsibility of the speaker, code of conduct of councillors. As the honourable members can see, these are the functional areas which actually helps a council to be able to fulfill its oversight function and role even stronger and better. So what in actual fact happens is that some of our own officials go out, they go and present to a specific council or 2 councils, and then provides them with more information and understanding of these specific matters that affect their day-to-day function. It's very practical, and it's tailor-made for the specific need of that council at that time. Now, how did we identify these informal sessions? Honourable members, are 1 or 2 ways. The first one is the direct request from municipalities, and I must say that we actually received still on an ongoing basis a number of direct requests from councils, and that then has become one of our very strong support offerings that we have in the department. But secondly, also as we engage with municipalities, as we interact with municipalities, and carefully listening to the previous presentation, as the functioning of municipalities are monitored, sometimes we witness or see where a council can function stronger, or there's areas that can benefit from some of these information sessions, and then we actually approach the council or the municipality to say, can we come in and support you? And I must say that we are always very much welcomed. But what we then did was midterm. In the middle of the year, this was more or less 2018, 2019, as a department, and at the time with our partner SALGA, we had a training committee. We actually paused and we said to ourselves, how is it going? How's this NMMU training or the accredited training? How's it going? And what is the lessons that we are learning? But more importantly, how can we maybe, as we are doing a midterm check, how can we actually improve on going forward? And this is some of the feedback that we received, honourable members. The material was too legalistic. It was not applicable to all municipal functional areas, waste for instance, the practicalities thereof. It was too theoretical. A councillor comes to the training and they're expecting a practical response. How do I go back to my council and address this problem? And then there was no specific responses given. And also the last one, and that also connects to a question that was raised before, in our view, it did not create a sufficiently strong academic or skills path for an individual councillor. But we also looked at ourselves and our own informal training that our own officials and ourselves were providing. And as a lesson learned, we saw that we can be stronger and better if we work in closer collaboration with other stakeholders, such as the Provincial Treasury, SALGA, COPTA, and others. We also realized that we needed to extend our training, informal training sessions to other committees, other oversight committees, and to be more responsive to the needs of municipalities. So at that point in time, we realized, for instance, that there are new regulations that were published by COPTA, and we realized that we need to be able to provide more information to councillors on these new regulations and how do they impact and affect the work that councillors are doing physically on the ground. But then maybe more importantly for us, a department, and my HOD felt very strongly about this and became the personal custodian, is that we needed to put greater focus and impetus on the personal growth and development of the individual, the councillor, the person. Because only if I grow as a person, I can start fulfilling my role and responsibility in the council and the role that I need to play there a little bit bigger. So Honourable Chairperson, we did this hard reflection and we sent ourselves back to the drawing board and we re-strategized a bit. So what did we do? We went back to our partners, our donor partners, the Hans Seidel Foundation, and we came up with a strategy which we call a winter school, summer school, or a seasonal school, whichever time of the year it is. But it's a very focused 1-day, 2-day session with a number of councillors in the room where the focus is on me as a leader in my community. It is to be, how do you become stimulating a responsible citizenry? How do we contribute towards a pool of skilled leadership? And lastly, and more importantly, is how do we move towards servant leadership as councillors, and then also very interestingly as officials? Now, we then introduced this regime of annual, summer or seasonal schools, which is presented by a service provider, but it actually looks at my own values and it become very much internally focused. We then introduced, honourable members, this is part of our training package. Secondly, we went to the MMMU as our service provider and we did a full review of our training material. And as a result, more case studies were included. Also keep in mind that not all councillors actually submitted their assignments. For them, it was information sessions. So we included role plays. We included practical scenarios where practical answers were debated between the councillors in the room. And lastly, and most importantly, the NMMU then developed a postgraduate diploma to encourage councillors to complete the program. So if they completed all 9 modules, then they would automatically be qualified to move on to the postgraduate diploma. And there are indeed a number of councillors in the province that qualified sufficiently to move on to the diploma, and they actually use this opportunity of growth and development. In terms of our own lessons learned, this is the changes we made. We started working a lot closer with SALGA and COCTA around impact training, and that was just reflected on by SALGA before. With COCTA, we rolled out a whole series of anti-corruption training, establishment of committees, and also putting a number of policies in place. And then lastly, something that we started off in 2018-19 and we're doing on a regular basis now is, for instance, the implications of certain judgments, but also legal opinions that we receive. We make that available to all councils and administrations to also assist them with their day-to-day functioning and strengthen their oversight function and responsibility. And when we are called for clarity, we duly provide that. What we then further did was, honourable members, now we are getting ready for the local government elections in 2021, and we decided as a department to do a formal gap analysis. And we did it in 2 ways. The first one is, in terms of our summer school, we had a formal debriefing session. Some of the councillors who attended the seasonal schools, we invited them, and in these sessions, we really encouraged the councillors to hold the mirror up to us as a department and be honest with us in terms of what worked well and what didn't work well. Because ultimately, with our partners, SALGA and the Provincial Treasury, COCTA, we want to help to equip councillors better and make them stronger for the role that they are now going to face. So that mirror showed us the following. We got a few commendations, which I would want to just highlight. There was acknowledgement for the department for making the adjustment midterm in line with the requirements, the requests and the feedback that we received at that point in time, but also that we were very much commended for the themes that were covered in the summer and the winter school. And just to remind the honourable members, this was specifically around ethics and how do I develop myself as an individual to be a stronger leader. And I must say that those themes really resonated with our councillors. And in actual fact, our HOD and our minister were regular presenters also in those programs. Once again, what are the recommendations and what are the areas that we can improve on? Stronger focus on the basic principles that impact service delivery. And there, I think, is maybe a reminder to all of us in this space, especially us in SALGA, to go back to what are the basics. What is the requirement to get the basics right? A second very strong recommendation which we're taking to heart is to align our training with municipal planning, budgeting and implementation cycles. Let me be very practical. So we cannot assist councillors to understand how an IDP works 3 months after the IDP was considered in council for adoption. And that was one of the practical examples that we received. So we had to adjust our own training schedules in line with municipal planning cycles in order to equip our councillors for going into those sessions. And lastly, to take a more pragmatic approach, more practical, less theory. And that was a message that resonated throughout. And also in our formal gap analysis, we actually appointed a service provider, and we said to the service provider, please look at our multifaceted formal training for post-local government elections 2021. And this is our accredited training program. And from the outset, we ask our service providers, give us an opportunity where we can continue an ongoing cycle of learning, growth and development for our councillors on a professional level as a councillor, but also on a personal level. Interviews were conducted with MEC and HOD, and then a number of councillors, mayors, speakers, and once again, we received recommendations, and we took those to heart. Practical knowledge, that is what councillors want, that will improve their skills so that they're able to function more effectively. And a very interesting message that came through from the councillors is, I want you to help me to boost my own confidence, especially new councillors, in this new area that is so regulated and with lots of legislation. We need to take that into consideration. An assessment and recognition throughout the learning program. And that is something that we will continue doing. We saw it working well in the previous cycle. We will definitely continue with that to keep on listening to what are the needs and where can we improve. Then more in depth, and some of the matters that the councillors raised to us on a little bit more pragmatic is why of the mandate. What does the mandate mean in terms of some of the pieces of legislation that we heard this morning? The how. How do I, from being a ward councillor, make sure that the budget is spent in the way that it should be spent? How do I start unpacking complex socio-economic factors and also take that back to my constituents? And then very importantly, policy and legislative imperatives, which are not only complex, but also ever-changing. And then lastly, managing relationships and cultivating a stronger area and space that we work in. So what we needed to do is, in our way forward, we needed to take all of these matters into consideration when we prepared this. And Honourable Chairperson, we created this in preparation for today, and it actually portrays in a little picture what is the reality that we are faced with as partners, ourselves, SALGA, the Treasury, COCTA, and other partners. We are sitting with a changing landscape in municipalities, and this is our reality. We have a number of coalition councils, which change the role of a councillor slightly. And what we're also reflecting on as a department is that if there are so many coalitions, the landscape is changing and there may be risks that we need to be aware of. Some of these risks may be that the coalitions may not be always as stable. There may be a change in the senior management leadership of a municipality. It may impact on administrative culture, and then later on a breakdown in the relations with the community. Now, what we are saying is that these are not true in all cases, but what we are saying is it is now an environment for which we as a department left bottom needs to really think what needs to go into our training and capacity building and opportunities for learning and growth of councillors to equip them to be able to fulfill their oversight mandate stronger in this changing landscape, so that we have a stronger individual, a stronger leader that on the right-hand side will positively impact on ongoing service delivery, and to make sure that the mandates are fulfilled and that at the end of the day, our community members can feel a council that plays their role from an oversight point of view, but is also proud to say that I live in this municipality. So this in short, and this is my last slide, Honourable Chairperson, this is our program that we are currently working on. Firstly, the induction program. We are partners with SALGA. We are also participating in their program together with other departments and other partners. So what will we do? Based on the feedback that we are receiving from our councillors, we have decided as a department to give councillors an opportunity to physically attend the Municipal Minimum Competency Accredited Training Program. Those are the programs that the officials are attending, and based on the overwhelming feedback that we received from councillors, this is the training that they would want us to do. For this year, we are doing a pilot for 20 councillors, and in the out years, we have also provided funding and made funding available to pick up more councillors for this specific training opportunity. And this is at an NQF level 6 if you complete all the modules, and that's just to connect with the ongoing learning opportunity. Then definitely a continuation with our seasonal schools and continuation on the theme of ethics, ethical leadership, stronger personal growth and development. And there is a very strong link between those two programs that we are running. And then lastly, our department will most definitely continue with our informal training, specifically also based on the fact that it's new councils. We see that a number of requests are coming through to review delegations, to review bylaws, also to bring it in line with an ever-changing landscape in terms of legislation. And our teams are full-time working at the moment in councils to not only provide information sessions, but also to update these documents as they can be seen there, and then to provide training and information session on councils, how to interpret them, these documents, and also how to impact and roll them out in the municipalities. Chairperson, that is it from our side. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Barnard, for that comprehensive presentation. Members, I am taking your questions. I note Member Maseko.
Thank you very much, Chair. Chair, I just want to find out from the department, and I think the first presentation, which highlighted the responsibility of the department in monitoring and supporting, also strengthening the systems within the municipalities. Now, I want to find out, because as we do an oversight with all the presentation that has the beautiful things that the department is doing, and also Ms. Barnard, thank you very much for the presentation. When we interact with the councillors, most of the time, and for example, we went to Langeberg, you will hear the councillor saying, you know, the official said, no, they don't want to give us that information. We struggle to get the information. Now, if you get the responses like that, when you ask them about some of the decision that has been taken, and you look at all the systems that are in place from the Department of Local Government of what you are doing to empower or capacitate the councillors, how do you look at your value chain for that capacity to see that really it's paying dividends? And what is it that informs the department in making sure that year after year, your allocation for the budget for capacitating the councillors really pays dividends? And number two is also, for example, we have the LED within the municipalities. If, as the department, you see, there is a local economic development within municipalities, and most municipalities, they're not looking into it. The councils are not looking into that. How do you identify some of the responsibilities that are within municipalities so that when you capacitate also, you do the study, sort of the how do I put this? Sort of the reality of the situation for them to get the importance of how, and also you capacitating them to say, how am I going to implement the responsibilities that I do have within the municipalities? And I agree with you, Ms. Bernard, that sometimes the challenge is doing the training after like your IDP has happened. But if IDP has happened for this financial year and you empower me for this year, that means the next financial year is going to be a beautiful IDP plan that, or I will use information that I received this year. So, and it will be an example of what they have as an IDP to assist them to check if it really tick the boxes of everything that you want to see as the Department of Local Government. And I'm saying this because there is one way or another, there is the misinformation in some of the municipalities that they don't understand that what gets to be implemented in the municipalities is what they said has to happen as they agree or they vote within the council chambers. Now, how do we sort of meet each other halfway to make sure that as we do the oversight, we get to see that you as the department, you capacitated the councillors for them to really react to the needs within the communities using this program as it is in front of us. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Member Dugmore, I note you.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks again to the department for the presentation. Just a few quick questions. I just wanted to know about the alignment of the training that the department described and that of SALGA. If maybe I missed that, but if we could, obviously I think, the more training, the better. But I just wanted to check on the alignment and whether there's a discussion between the department and SALGA about the training, the curriculum, and some of the issues that have come out of the assessments. And then secondly, the presentation referred to the partnership with Hans Seidel Foundation, I think, and the Nelson Mandela Bay University. I just wanted to check, for how long has that partnership been going, and is there a limit to the number of years? And just wanted to check, is this totally funded by Hans Seidel? In other words, they pay the Nelson Mandela University to do that, and for how long will that partnership work? And then thirdly, whether there's any relationship with the National School of Government in regard to the training of councillors. Do they also have modules? And then finally, it was a question that I had forgotten to ask Salga, but I think it's equally applicable to the department. I was just thinking, apropos of the chairperson's point around, psychosocial support and what I was raising about personal planning for the 5 years and financial planning, etc., etc. Now, I wouldn't be able to estimate, but there literally must be hundreds of former councillors. I think they're called aldermen and women, if I'm not mistaken, from various political parties who might be retired or might have time on their hands. And often, the advantage of a new councillor being able to be mentored or have someone that they can speak to, like a former councillor, is, not only for the technical knowledge around portfolio committee work and how best to serve your constituency, but also just so-called lessons in life, you know, what to do, what not to do, how to relate to the opposition, how to relate to officials, how to relate to community. So I just wonder, does the department have a database of former councillors, and, you know, what do they think about the idea of those former councillors being approached to consider whether they would not mentor new councillors who wanted to be mentored? Thank you.
Thank you very much for those questions. Ms. Barnard, if you allow me, I just also want to latch on. And in regard to very often when we are leading towards an election, it becomes more, but it also happens in between protest actions. Now, I just wanted to know in regard to supporting of our councillors, and I'm just reminded of Member Bartman saying that one of the councillors, I think she mentioned one of the platteland municipalities that are doing work out of a car because she does not have an office. But I just want to find out what is the kind of support for a councillor and that councillor's family if that councillor becomes a victim of protest. Maybe that councillor loses personal assets. How is that councillor then supported? Then you have indicated in regard to the municipal minimum competency training that 20 councillors will undergo or attend those classes in the 22-23 financial year. I just want to understand what is the spread in regard to the province. What is the spread from what municipalities would that 20 councillors come from? And then in regard to your training, you know, there is a perception that when our councillors are inaugurated, they are now a councillor, they then remain in an air-conditioned office. Now, I did not see in your training as part of the curriculum that regular community report back meetings is part of that. So I would want to know, how do you encourage that to councillors to hold regular report back community meetings in order to you know, to tell community members what is the status of a ward or a municipal precinct. And then in regard to the councillors that have already gone through the university training, if you can take me back, perhaps, where am I looking at? 2020, 2019, 18, if you could talk to what was the number of councillors that enrolled for that particular classes, and in regard to that number, what was the number that actually completed and attained their qualification for that training that they have undergone. Thank you very much. That is my round. Member Dugmore, do you still wish to pose another question? Your hand is still raised.
My apologies. Sorry. My
Hi.
apologies. Yeah.
All right, Ms. Barnard, then that is the round of questions.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson and members. I'm going to start from one side and work back, if you'll allow me. Honourable Dugmore, just in terms of our consultation with SALGA, so at the moment there are no less than 2 specific formalised structures where we engage both the SALGA but also with other stakeholders. The one is the one that the colleagues from SALGA refer to. It's a structure inside SALGA. But the second one is what we call Departmental Training Committee, which is chaired by ourselves. And in that instance, we also pull in all the other provincial departments that may be involved in municipalities in a training or capacity building space, either formal or informal. So there's ongoing consultation to make very sure that there is no duplication, and we keep on communicating with each other, also because we have scarce resources. I think what is also, sorry, Honourable Member.
You may continue, Ms. Barnard.
Thank you, Chairperson. Then just in terms of the partnership with the Hans Seidel Foundation, the Hans Seidel Foundation has had a footprint in the Western Cape province for several years now, spanning well over 20 years. They also have a footprint in other provinces in the country and also working extensively in at least 3 other provinces in the country with similar work that they're doing in the Western Cape. The last of the MOUs was signed about 3 years ago that guides the work that we're doing with the Hans Seidel Foundation, but it's been a long-standing relationship between the provincial government of the Western Cape and the foundation. And indeed, as the member indicated, that the NMMU was paid in full by the Hans Seidel Foundation. In actual fact, the foundation also uses their own supply chain processes, which is regulated from Germany and from the Chancellery in Germany. They actually use their own processes to appoint, and the department or the province is involved in that process. Then, in terms of the National School of Government, although the National School of Government is operating and functioning, their only and exclusive focus at the moment are officials. So they do not cater for councillors at this point in time, and that's why we are going the route that we are. And we have also shared some of our material with COCTA, as some of the other provinces are also trying to roll out similar training programs in their own provinces. I was definitely taking note through you, Honourable Chairperson, to Member Dugmore around the psychosocial support and also the other members that raised that. It's definitely a conversation that we will take up with our colleagues from SALGA, and also to look at programs of support and from previous councillors. So those 2 matters is definitely something that we will pick up in our bilaterals with our partners. I think they are good suggestions, and it's all just in an attempt, I believe, to assist our councillors to become stronger and to be able to fulfill their role, but not only as councillors, but also as individuals, and it's a point very well taken. Honourable Chairperson, thank you so much for that. We'll definitely consider that. Then, Chairperson, I will address your own questions around safety, specifically protest actions. We have had such matters in the previous round, and that matter is provided for in detail in the upper limits notice for councillors, and it's unpacked specifically in terms of what can be provided, what the municipality must and should do, and that is something that we can just provide to the committee as well. Then, in terms of the minimum competency, the 20 councillors, we are planning to do a spread across the entire province to give all districts an opportunity to nominate councillors. And then we will obviously, as part of this process, take into consideration the number of councillors that reside per district. So there will be provision for more councillors to attend in Garden Route, for instance, that in Central Karoo. So there will be a parallel between the number of councillors nominated and then also the councillors that we take up. Just also to re-emphasize that we are making provision to be able to pick up more councillors in the next financial year should the need exist. Then, in terms of ward committees, definitely the feedback must be given. It's also very much regulated in terms of the legislation that there must be regular feedback from the ward councillors back to their wards, and we are also strongly encouraging that in all of our interactions with the ward councillors. But also alternatively, I must also just mention, Honourable Chairperson, that there is also a unit in our department that takes exclusive responsibility also to assist with the establishment of the ward committees and also to provide training and capacity building to them. Now, these ward committees and their functioning, and the stronger they function, the more support they can give to the ward councillor that can carry that back into the councils and also close the loop in a certain way. the NMMU, how many councillors, we can provide the formal information to the councillors, to the honourable members. I don't have the exact numbers with me at the moment, but what I can indicate to the members is that well over 20 councillors completed all 9 modules at the time. But please also keep in mind that a number of councillors could also attend the sessions. And I remember at the time that the sessions were really quite full and quite well attended, but only just over 20 councillors actually physically completed all 20 councillors completed all 9 modules, which also gives an indication why we're starting with a pilot of 20 councillors just to start off with. Then Councillor Maseko, I was listening around the value chain, but specifically, how do we check that what we are investing is paying dividend? And it's also a question that was posed to Salga, and I was listening to their response as well. And as we are here together, as the committee is aware, we actually said to each other that once we are approached, let me say we are approached by a council, and they say to us, please come and assist us to review our set of delegations. We do that, and then the team goes back and takes the full council and the MACO through the delegations. Then after that, our monitoring kicks in. Our monitoring to ensure that now the delegations are flowing through properly. So it becomes a loop of going back to check, do you understand? Are you okay to implement it? Is the implementation going well? If not, then we need to go back. So the monitoring then assists us also to identify potential new gaps. So for instance, if we start working with the council, it has happened in the past, to review bylaws. We change the bylaws, we bring it up to speed, we go through the training, and in the process we see that there are now some policies that needs to be changed. So it also assists us and guide us in terms of where ongoing support is required. Councillor Maseko, if we can have beautiful IDPs in all 30 municipalities, I will surely be a very happy lady in my office. But indeed, you are correct. And what Member Maseko is saying is that even if we miss the opportunity to give IDP training, budget training, whatever training, before we could catch the cycle this year, and we can catch next year's cycle, if the IDP is stronger, if there is an understanding that we're not just ticking the boxes, but I have a personal role to play to make sure that our IDP is a combined document, and it needs to reflect where not we only want to take this municipality, but also how we want to improve lives and invest money. Then our training was successful, and then Member Maseko, we will have a beautiful IDP, and our municipalities will become servant leaders of our communities, and we were able to serve them better. So it's a point fully taken. It's for us also a process of growing and developing and reassigning and realigning our timing, but it's never too late. And that's, I'm just reconnecting also with some of the members. Now, how do we do oversight? And this is an interesting, and I was talking about the loop a little bit earlier. How do we make sure that the decisions that are taken are following through? And that is a very important point also, to make sure that if a decision is taken, let's use an example for a matter to go to impact, then it's important to make sure that that item comes back to the council after it's served at impact, and that is to be able to close the loop. So it almost becomes a follow-through responsibility for the councillors, and those are some of the matters that we as a department and SALGA handle and address very strongly so when we have our informal training sessions, and we explain the processes step by step so that everybody is comfortable and can identify with their role in this regard, but also to understand how it needs to come back, in which shape and form, and the specific oversight responsibility that the councillors have in this regard. Chairperson, I think I've covered most of them.
Thank you very much, Ms. Barnard. Members, are there any follow-ups to the responses that you have received? None from you. Ms. Barnard, I just want to make sure, in regard to a councillor needing psychosocial support. In other words, it needs a counselor to speak to or a psychologist to see, and that counselor does not necessarily have medical aid to his or her disposal, because I believe that medical aid is not compulsory for counselors. It's voluntary, if I am not mistaken. What is then in that space? If a counselor needs that now, is that at the behest of the counselor to make an appointment? Is there a network of counselors or psychologists that a counselor can make an appointment with today to see if it is necessary?
Honourable Chairperson, the first and foremost is that there are a number of municipalities that actually have a wellness policy where some of these matters will be captured in, and that provides access to both councillors and officials if they require such support, but it's definitely not all the municipalities. And as I indicated, it's definitely something that we will pick up with SALGA to be able to address the broader need and requirement in this regard. And yeah, it's a good suggestion, and we'll definitely take that to heart, ma'am. We will do that. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Members, if there are no more questions from your side, you have exhausted. We will then deal with your recommendations in the admin segment of our standing committee. I then want to say or bestow an opportunity to Ms. Barnard. Any closing remarks from you, ma'am, before I say goodbye?
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson. Nothing else from us. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Okay, thank you. Then indeed, Ms. Barnett and your team, thank you very much. And then Councillor Stoneman, thank you very much to you, your executive team, as well as the SALGA team, Mr. Hearn and your team. Thank you very much to have joined our standing committee local government meeting this morning. Please go well. You may log off this meeting now. Just before you go, my apologies to Mr. Vermeulen. I saw late that you have joined us. Welcome to the Standing Committee meeting. Mr. Vermeulen is our Senior Procedural Officers. Department of Local Government and SALGA, as well as the executive of SALGA, you may now log off. All members, please stay behind so that we can conclude on the Standing Committee meeting. Thanks.
Thank you, Chair.
Members, I also need to bestow my gratitude to our IT staff for making this happen this morning. I will now afford an opportunity for recommendations in regard to the presentations that we have had. Member Bartman and follow Member Dugmore.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, in the Western Cape Department's presentation, they actually had a list of the different training and development that they do and, indicated whether it's credited. And I wanted to find out if we could ask SALGA for the same, just a list of what exactly in terms of their training development is accredited and which are not. Because I'm concerned about the transfer of skills for when, if for any reason a councillor does not come back as a councillor, that they're able to apply that within the private sector, for example. And then perhaps if we could just receive an indication regarding what are the the requirements that would need to change in terms of legislation for councillors to be full-time, or alternatively, what would the legislative changes need to be for part-time and or PR councillors, and for the different types of councillors to have equitable access to resources and tools of trade that some other councillors who are considered full councillors receive. I do know some ward councillors who are not considered full-time councillors, and that is concerning, because my understanding would be that a ward councillor is much closer to the people than some of the other elected officials. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Member Doug Moore.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I think you're asking us to specifically talk about recommendations from this meeting, but I would also like to ask if we could just have a few minutes, to indicate, matters for the following meetings in terms of briefings and so on. We have previously referred to the issue of program of action, but just to say in regard to this meeting, I would propose that the committee receives a briefing from the department around the legal opinion concerning whether municipalities should have an obligation to answer questions put by individual members via the MEC, and that at that meeting we also specifically invite the mayor of Cape Town to be present, just so that we can discuss that issue. And obviously I think it would be important to have Salga there. I think it would be important to have the MEC at that meeting as well, just so that we can talk about this issue and decide, whether it's law or convention, etc. And then I would secondly like to propose that we do have a follow-up meeting, briefing specifically with Salga, where we discuss, where I think we did agree that, and I'm not sure whether the committee coordinator, has recorded those questions, but I would like us to have a follow-up meeting with Salga, where, amongst other things, we can discuss, Salga policy in regard to the MPAC issue, and also Salga policy in regard to support provided to ward and PR and ward councillors, and ward councillors in particular in regard to officers, tools of trade, and also the appointment of ward assistant stroke administrators. And then also just to ask Salga in a written question, do they have a list of former councillors, from the Western Cape, retired councillors and so on? Do they have a list of all of those? And, whether they have considered approaching any of those aldermen and women about whether they're prepared to play a mentoring role. And then I do have 3 specific issues, but that is just for proposed topics for future meetings. So I'll just hold on to that now. Thanks,
now
Chair.
We have lost you.
Okay, no, I'm just saying, Chair.
You have 3.
Sorry?
You said you have 3 specific issues.
Yeah, those are proposals for future meetings. They don't have a direct bearing on the presentations that we've just received. So I thought maybe let me just hold back, and then through you, Chair, maybe Johan could see our procedural officer, had actually recorded other issues such as the specific questions that we wanted Salga to respond to. But I do then propose that we have a follow-up with them. Yeah, thanks. I'll mention my 3 issues. I'll mention my 3 issues later, and we'll hopefully very shortly.
Later when? Today?
No, not to discuss today, but just to, you see, Chair, the issue is the formulation by the committee of our agenda of work. So I don't think we've ever I'm not just suggesting that we discuss it now, but I would just like to mention the 3 issues so that possibly when we meet again, we can have 20 minutes to discuss the program of this committee. Thanks.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much. Member Maseko, none from your side?
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, I'm suggesting that we get that legal response from the minister. Already we are empowered by the legislature, our legal representatives that have empowered us with what we can do, what we cannot do. So we need to get the response from the minister, and then we bring that to the committee and look if it's in line with what we received from the institution, which is the parliament. Is then that after we can say, what are we going to do? Because we don't know what is in that document. So we cannot have the standing committee to come and interrogate that. Maybe that document is the same as what the legal advisor have said to us. And then if there's anything that is specific that we have to interact with the mayor of the city, then we talk to that issue that it will be specific that we are going to do an oversight and ask for information from him. Rather than us now going meeting to meeting, talking about what is the scope of our mandate, what is the scope of our mandate. I think it will be progressive if we do it that way, because now we are talking as if it might or it might not happen. Now let's put the practicality of interacting and asking questions to see if we'll get the response directly from the municipality, whether being the metro or any other municipality. I think that's my contribution, Chair.
Thank you very much, Member Maseko. I think you read my mind. I was going to also respond to Member Dugmore in his recommendation to say just that, to say that let's wait for the response that we from the Department of Local Government, and then make the comparison, and then let's move forward. Johan, I note your hand. I'll get to you now to then take that forward, and maybe then if we have received the communication from the department, we have that hour or so, half hour or so, Member Dugmore, to discuss in our standing committee as members, and then we take it from there as to how that would then inform our program of action going forward. Saying that, I also want to then make a recommendation to the standing committee, as I have indicated earlier in this meeting, and also as you have seen in the parliamentary program, that we will have standing committee meetings with the department, with the Standing Committee of Human Settlements. As I have indicated earlier today, that we are, as local government, human settlements, transport, public works, finance, we are all fishing from the same dam. So I think it is rather productive to have some synergy between us going forward and doing monitoring over local government. So you will see that in the parliamentary program, there are joint meetings that we will have for now with human settlements, but I would also want to recommend for this standing committee to also then have better synergy with especially public works and transport and human settlements going forward, and then for us to have meetings within the districts, municipalities, with together as joint standing committees with content matters in the municipalities going forward. So I just want to put that recommendation forward for this committee going forward. And then I would now give an opportunity to Jan Coetzee for the recommendations that he has jotted down in regard to the meeting that we have had today. Jan, over to you.
Thank you, Chairperson. It's not so much on resolutions that I've got down, just two matters. The question regarding the legal opinion from the Minister was one that was taken earlier this year when we did the appropriation bill. We've received the response. I've asked them to just provide it for me electronically because they just send us one hard copy. I don't want to make copies of it now. So as soon as I receive it electronically, I will forward it to all the members. Then just the second matter, well, then we can program that matter, Chair. I'll discuss it with you. Then the second one, just for the committee to be noted that in terms of our rules, there is no provision for joint meetings. I hear your point with regard to meeting together. It's just then important that one committee takes the lead in terms of the arrangements and the setup, and then the other committee to join during that meeting. And I will speak to my fellow procedural officers that we try and work on a strategy how we can go forward and getting these meetings together. That's all, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Jan. I just want to say in regard to that, not joint meetings, but rather having standing committee meetings together. I think as standing committees, if we are doing it together, we would have content that pertains to local government, perhaps, and content that pertains to human settlements in that regard. And then whoever chairs local government would then take the chair if it's local government matters on the agenda, and whoever is the chair for human settlements takes the human settlements content as the chair. Would that suffice?
Thank you, Chair. That makes sense.
Thank you. Any recommendations that you have jotted down in regard to this meeting today?
Chairperson, no, nothing specific. I think it's one that I did jot down was the support to councillors during and after protest or intimidation, whether there is support from council side, and then also the social and psychological support to councillors. They did mention that some of the councils has got wellness programs, others don't, and perhaps we could maybe get a list of councils that don't have, and we can follow up on those ones and see whether the department could assist them to implement something like that. But I'll listen to the meeting again and then just see, especially with the SALGA questions, if there's anything that we need to get from them.
Okay, thank you very much. If you have listened, then if you can just communicate on the WhatsApp group that this was the added recommendations from the meeting, and that members can just give their thumbs up that they are okay with it, please.
Will do, ma'am.
Thank you very much. Then members, in regard to tomorrow, we have together with Human Settlement Standing Committee, we have a meeting in with the Cape Winelands district in Paarl, and the logistical arrangements has been sent by Shumise Jones, the procedural officer for human settlements, who takes the lead in this regard. So if you have not responded to the communication that she has sent, please do so. And then if all goes well, we will see each other in Paarl tomorrow morning, and that meeting would start at 8 tomorrow morning. Then members, I wish to say thanks to IT for today. Thanks to our procedural officers as well as the senior procedural officer who has joined our meeting. And now I see hands going up, Member Dugmore and Mr. Coetzee.
Yeah, Chair, thanks. Now, I just wanted to get clarity.
Oh, yes. Sorry,
Chair,
sorry, you go ahead. Hmm?
Yeah, I just wanted to get clarity. I would like to ask, are we then at our next meeting going to have the opportunity to put forward matters that we believe the Standing Committee should discuss, or oversight visits or monitoring visits or whatever? Are we going to do that on our next meeting?
We can do that as part of our meeting, together with what is already proposed in our draft program. Yes.
Okay, so was the draft program circulated, Chair?
The draft program, we have had the draft program in front of us when we did the appropriation.
Okay, I'm going to have to, I'll speak to Johan just to try and check if I
I
can't
will
find
ask Mr. Kutsia to resend to everybody.
it. Okay, thanks, Chair.
Okay. Mr. Kutsia, if you are raising to me, sir, that there are still items on the agenda, I have not forgotten.
Okay, Chair, looks like you're driving on 95 unleaded petrol, so you're very fast today.
I told you the other day I'm a fast driver. Members, in saying that, gracing this meeting with your presence this morning, thank you very much. We have other items on the agenda. I'm going to move to the minutes of 17 March. And I take it that you have gone through the minutes. You have read through the minutes. Johan, if you could flight it for us, please.
Chair, is it
Thank
visible?
you. Yeah, it's very faint but visible.
Okay.
Okay, if you can scroll up. Members, just check your presence. Okay, was Botha Bosman Maseko. Members, I just want to say that I am tabling. I received a last apology from member Makamba Botja. So I'm tabling her apology, please, for the record, Johan, as well, for today's meeting.
Will do, ma'am.
Okay. Members, then look at the content. And the recommendations or actions. Johan, can we term it as recommendations and not actions going forward?
Okay.
Members, can I request for a mover and a shaker to adopt?
Chair,
Yes,
I move
yes.
that we support.
Thank you,
I would
members.
like to second Honourable Maseko.
Thank you very much, members Maseko and Dagwo. Johan, if you can record likewise, please. Then we have the quarterly report that was circulated to all of us. And remember, the quarterly report is looking back. It was the third quarter. Then it is the first page is just the composition, the mandate of this committee. Then on the second page, we have the departments reporting to the committee. We have the entities reporting to the committee, of which we have none. And then the chairperson's overview. And then we also look at the number of committee meetings that was held. And then that takes us to the end of the report. Members, in regard to me taking it that you have read the report, are there any amendments to this report? I note the hand of member Bartman. And Mr. Kutsia, your hand is still raised.
Thank you, Chair. Just on page 1, there's an extra space next to the underlined blue parts under the first paragraph. But other than that, I'm not sure if I can move, but then with that, I move that we can adopt the report.
Where are you talking?
On page 1.
On page 1. What
So
under 1?
I did have my hand up, but I wasn't sure if I could stop you there in the middle.
Are you talking under 2, the committee mandate? Are you talking about 2.1.1 that needs to
Under
shift?
1 on page 1, if we can, if Mr. Could see if we just
Here?
move the page up, then I can just.
Yeah.
Yeah, under thereby the chairperson's overview, thereby was reconstituted. It's too many spaces between was and reconstituted.
Chair, I will fix that up.
No problem.
Okay, thank
Other
you
than that,
very
I'm
much.
happy. Thanks.
Okay, then do you move them with that amendment to adopt the quarterly report?
Yes, I move to adopt.
I
Thank you.
second that with that amendment.
Thank you very much, Members Bartman and Member Maseko. Thank you very much. Then we go to the next matter, which is the annual activity report. Okay, this page 1 is also the composition mainly, and then there's the introduction and in regard to the mandate of the committee. Then there is the overview of the committee's activities and oversight activities that was embarked on. That's all on page 2. And then the legislation that has been handled by this committee, as well as provincial bills and NCOP bills. And then there's the financials pertaining to this committee. And then that takes us to the end of this activity report. May I ask, is there any amendments to this activity report? None?
There's no amendment, and I move that we support, Chair.
Thank you very much. Can I have a seconder? Member Bartman?
I second.
Thank you very much. Then we get to the committee program, Member Dagball. Jan, jy moet voortaan 'n bietjie groter tik, hoor. Okay, Tuesday the 10th is today. Then we're going to have the I want to say joint, but you say together. The program, program with, or the meeting with human settlements not recorded. Not recorded.
Chairperson is not on this one, but I will incorporate the future ones all on the program as well.
Okay, but may I please ask that you add this one for tomorrow in this?
Will do.
Thank you very much. So then that takes care of the 11th, and then members, on our next meeting is supposedly to be on the 24th, but that one is going to fall away. So then the very next one will be on the 7th. Now, members, in regard to the 7th and what we were talking to, depending on Johan, and you must guide us here now, in regard to that legal opinion that we want to receive electronically, do you perhaps have a timeline from the department as to when we can expect to receive that?
Chairperson, yeah, I got the hard copy. I should have it by the end of today, and then I can forward it to the committee.
Okay. members, in getting all this legal stuff out of the way for us to embark on the actual work that we are supposed to do, can I then, with your indulgence, if you support, that we handle those matters then on the 7th of June? Maybe for the first hour or the first hour and a half, and then go over to the content that is in the program right now. I'm taking
Yes.
guidance.
I'm in agreement, Chair.
Support as well.
Okay, all right. Then, Johan, the content for the 7th of June will slightly change as well.
Noted, Chairperson.
Okay, all right. And then, members, there are the cluster visits by the end, I think it's by the 3rd week of June. Johan, guide me.
That's correct, Chairperson.
Okay, all right. So that would then be the cluster visit for the week.
Yeah. Chair, unfortunately, we don't know yet who will be the lead chairperson and what the theme is and what the district is or the region that we will visit, but that will be populated as soon as that's been decided.
Okay, do we then get that information via the Chief Whip's office?
Chief Whips and the programming authority, yes, ma'am.
Okay, all right, okay. All right, so we will wait for that, but for now, everybody can diarize the 3rd week of June, right?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, all right, so that is the 20th to the 24th. 24th, no, it's the 20th of June to the 24th of June, not July.
So it's going to be a rather long visit.
Oh, you want a long cluster visit, eh? Okay, and then as we go along and we populate the parliamentary program, we will then also, I think on that 7th of June, we can look at beyond the cluster visit. We would then already have information around the cluster visit, and maybe Johan and members, I want to ask you here, seeing that the cluster visit is on the 20th of June, on the 7th of June, that we also discuss it. But now I'm thinking, Johan, is that then not too late already on the 7th of June?
Chairperson, yeah, no, by that time we would have been done.
You would have populated the cluster program already.
But Chair, I think as soon as I get any other information, I will raise it with you, and then I can communicate on our group with the committee members.
Okay, members, can I just ask in principle whether you are then open for a short meeting in regard to our cluster visit? Support, just so that you know.
Support, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Johan, we will then take directive from you.
Okay, yes.
Okay.
Sorry, Chair. I'm looking at some of the programs that you have, like the department to brief the committee on the status of all Section 106 investigations. Again, it will be the same principle of human settlement and local government. So some of the issues that are in local government, it will be and human settlements. So we will. So Johan, you mustn't be surprised if some of the things that are on the agenda that you populated the program, that I will also add some things to be the two committees in those municipalities, or also it will be a joint, or but it will be if we meet the municipalities, because sometimes it will be blurry lines with the departments if they are both in front of us. But we'll discuss with the chairperson to see how do we mitigate to sort of do that oversight without deleting the blurry lines to be unto us.
Okay, thank you. Then Johan, I think we can stop here. We're not going to now discuss so far ahead. We will see when we get to the 7th of June what our actual program then looks like for the rest of the financial year.
That would be great, Chair, because the parliamentary program only takes us up to this constituency period.
True.
So I've not just
True.
sort of envisaged, but
Yeah.
go ahead.
Yes. Okay. All right. Then you can remove this.
This draft program,
Yeah.
Chairperson, then in principle is adopted up to
Yeah.
the cluster visit week.
I will pose the question. Yes, members. Can we, Member Maseko, I noted that your mic went on and off and on and off again.
Chair, I wanted to see just a little bit of the next on the legislation that was there to the process of legislation, or was a specific legislation that is coming on the program before you removed it?
Chairperson, there is one piece of legislation that the department envisaged to table this year. It's the Western Cape Monitoring and Support of Municipalities Amendment Bill. They indicated that it will happen around about the third, or maybe the third quarter.
Okay.
Towards the end of the
Which
second,
is between
maybe
October and December, right?
Yeah. So I've sort of made provision for it on the program, and as we go along, it will just shift down, just so that members know that there is a piece of legislation.
There is a piece of legislation coming. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. No,
Member
thank you.
Maseko, you're happy?
I'm happy with that. I propose that we adopt the program.
I just noted Member Dugmore also played musical chairs with his mic. Member Dugmore, you went on and off and on and off. Okay, Member Bartman, I noted your hand.
I just wanted to support, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. Johan, with that amendment, then we are we have a proposal from Member Maseko to adopt the draft, and then Member Bartman in support.
Thank you,
to adopt that draft. And then we get to the last
Chair.
piece of. Are you there?
Yeah. Yes, no, I'm here. Sorry, Chair, I just wanted to then confirm that at the meeting on the 7th, before we do the oversight, we will have some time then to input on, the rest of the program at that meeting on the 7th of June.
Agreed upon. Yes.
Thank you.
Then the tracking document, Johan, if you could flight that.
Chairperson, now I must find it. I think it's this one. Yeah, it is this one.
Oh, it's also so faint. Okay, so the tracking document starts from 2019.
Chairperson,
yes,
they are all resolved. The only one, well, in fact, they are all resolved. I just haven't updated this one. The resolutions that was taken during the appropriation process, I have received the responses. As soon as I get them electronically, I will then forward it to the members.
All right. Okay. Members, are you happy with that content?
In order.
Thank you very much. Member Bartman and Member Maseko.
All in order, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, Johan.
Thank you, Chair.
Then members, that leaves me to say thank you very much for joining the Standing Committee meeting today. I think it was a very fruitful meeting. And once again, thanks to IT that kept us on the road. And then a heartfelt thanks to Johan, the two Johans, and then Umfundu. Thank you very much. Members, thank you to you. And then I see that the chair, deputy chair of SALGA was still here. Thank you. Members, you must go well, look after yourselves and keep safe. We will see each other in Paarl tomorrow. Remember, Dagmore, we're starting at 8.
Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank
Tomorrow,
you, Chair.
8.
But aren't we meeting at 7 in the morning if we need a lift?
Okay,
Yes,
are you needing a
7.
lifting?
Yeah.
I thought
7.
that was, I asked on the group and
Yeah.
I heard that we're leaving at now. I know there's an issue now that we are not in charge of this visit, but I heard that if you want to lift, you must be there at 7 in the morning. Is that right?
No,
Wrong?
the transport will leave the Parliament 7 o'clock because we are going to start 8 o'clock and we are going to start with an oversight first before we do the sit down to continue with the program.
Okay. So if I want to travel with you, Member Maseko, I must be there at 7. Is that what you're saying?
That's what
Yeah.
I'm saying.
Okay.
7 exactly.
Well, be safe. We will see each other tomorrow in Paarl.
Thanks, Johan.